I'd like to call the Wednesday, June 18, 2014 council meeting to order. It's approximately 6:05 p.m. This evening, the invocation will be by Pastor Sabrina Pope from Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Judy Wallman and the Police Explorers. Could you please stand?
Father God, we come before you with thanksgiving in our hearts for a new day, Lord God. Father God, we thank you for this mayor, Mayor Porter, the vice mayor, the councilman, and the councilwomen, Lord God. Lord, in your sovereignty, Lord God, rule and abide in this house, oh God. Give them the wisdom, oh God, that only you can impart, Lord God, as they remain impartial and being the support and the leadership that this community needs. Give them the peace, Lord God, and serenity to accept those things that they cannot change. But most important, the courage to change those things that they can. Bless this community, oh God. Watch over each law enforcement leader, the fire department, Lord God. Keep them safe in this community. Lord God, we pray for your protection upon your children during these summer months, oh God. But most importantly, look down upon and keep those who are unfortunate, Lord, the homeless, the poor, the widows and the widowers. Lord, allow their leadership, oh God, to impact lives in a positive way. Most importantly, keep them in health. Keep them in the right state of mind, oh God, that when they reason together, that they'll be able to come to an understanding for the good of all mankind within this city. Continue to allow your sovereign rule to be upon our military forces. Keep them safe around this great world, Lord. And bless now this city forevermore. In your precious Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Ms. Wallman, there are no explorers.
For their honor. Please join me as we honor our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Pastor, for a lovely prayer. Thank you, Ms. Waldman. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Maldonado, Councilman Williams, Councilwoman Fairclough,
Here.
Councilwoman Wallman,
Here.
Councilman Burgess,
Here.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Here.
Mayor Porter.
Here. Item 3 is public comments. This time the floor is open for public comments. Daniela, you want to speak? Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. It's an honor to be with you this afternoon. My name is Daniela Levine Cava, and I am a candidate for County Commission District 8. And it's my pleasure to be with you just to give you an update on the issues that we're covering in our race. Specifically today, we were very proud to release a position, our 3-point plan, to take aggressive steps to eliminate corruption and the perception of corruption from County Hall. And I have a copy of the statement that I'd, with your permission, like to distribute to the members.
About to get all in my pocket.
And then we'll also have it available for members of the public in a moment. So I am running for County Commission because of the perception of corruption at county government, and because I believe that we can and must restore confidence. And I want to commend you here in Homestead for being open and participatory and transparent with your budget and with your processes, and I'm hoping we can emulate some of those practices in the county. And specifically, the 3-point plan includes prohibiting donations from companies that do business with the county. This is modeled on what some other major cities have done, including Miami Beach, Palmetto Bay, and Aventura. Miami-Dade needs to end the practice of commissioners accepting donations from companies doing business with the county. Some of you may have read the Miami Herald on Sunday. There was a big investigative piece on the power of money from those doing business and its apparent influence or perception of influence on decision-making at the county. Number two, we propose that all county commissioners and commission candidates not just disclose, as is required currently by law, the donations to their campaign account, but also to file statements of solicitation for their 527 accounts, their political committees, and their electioneering communication organizations. This, again, is modeled after the state of Florida's own solicitation requirements, and we in Miami-Dade County need to adopt something similar that would require candidates to more fully disclose what their fundraising is across the board, restoring a sense of trust in the election process. And finally, number three, we propose a mandatory recusal from voting that would have any potential for benefit of family members. This is not currently part of the Commission on Ethics Standards at the county. It should be required that commissioners recuse themselves from any votes in which their business or that of a direct family member could stand to potentially gain financially. The recusal must be filed in advance of the scheduled vote with the Commission. So I am very grateful for the opportunity to share these ideas with you, and I hope that once elected, August 26th, I'll have a chance to explore it more fully and see how we can move forward to implement these ideas at County Hall. So I thank you.
Question. I'm sorry. I know I don't ask questions of political candidates, but when you sent this out, I had some questions for you about the intent. And are you saying that donations that candidates may receive, or just the city from vendors?
Yes, it would be also for candidates, not just for sitting. It would be an equal playing field. Of course, a person who's not currently an office holder, such as myself, doesn't immediately stand to benefit. But exactly how that could be implemented in a way that would be sure that all of the financial contributions are disclosed would help to insulate from future opportunities for either conflict or the perception of conflict. Because right now, the rules are very limited and really don't eliminate the perception of conflict, and that is contributing to an erosion of trust in our elected officials.
So those of us who've been elected and have received contribution, that doesn't mean that we eroded, does it?
Well, this wouldn't be retroactive, right? It would be prospective going forward. Yeah.
And you came up with this plan. This is your...
Yes, this is my proposal based on what I believe has been effective and in other areas. This is not the detailed proposal. Obviously, there's a lot that I am an attorney as well as a social worker, and there's obviously a lot of devil in the detail, and exactly how this would be interpreted and implemented. There'd need to be a lot of study and reflection, and I'm not naive enough to think that the other commissioners are going to just necessarily jump on board with this right away. So I think it will require a lot of study and consideration to see the impact and the benefit of this in other areas.
Okay. And this is for the county commission?
Correct. I'm addressing the county commission.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with all of you about these and other ideas in the next 10 weeks during the election season, but especially thereafter. So I appreciate your attention. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. A name and address for the record, please.
Frank Bocanegra, 908 Granada Boulevard, Coral Gables, Florida. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, staff, fellow citizens. My name is Frank Bocanegra. I'm a candidate for judge for county court. I wanted to come here just so I can give you a little history about myself. And the thing is that when people go into the voting booth, very few actually know who to vote for judge. And I think that's very important. And that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to get my message out, and I want to get my name and tell you a little bit about myself. I was raised in this community. I was actually born in Cuba, but I was raised here. I came here when I was 7 years old and went to school here. I actually, when I was in college, I clerked for the state attorney's office, and then I joined the Miami-Dade Police Department. And I was a cop for 30 years. I retired as a police major, and I later became city manager at Miami Lakes. And finally, I was in the DROP program, if you're familiar with the DROP, the Deferred Retirement Option Program. That's where I finished my DROP as a city manager. And I did some, I'd actually gone to law school while I was still in the police department. And I did some family law, and I did some other civil work. But I wanted to get into criminal defense, and I wanted to continue my public service. And what I did was, I did not apply at the state attorney's office. I went to the public defender's office. And why? Because I wanted to do the other side. I had done that side for 30 years, and I wanted to do the other side. And that's what I did. And I wanted the experience. I wanted the trial experience. As a result, I have over 32 trials. And I think what I bring is that balance, the balance of having worked both sides, of being fair, which I think it's critical, because I think a judge is not there to legislate. That's why we have good legislators. The judge is to interpret and apply the law to the facts in a fair way for both the state and for the defense. And I believe that I bring that to the court, and that's why I ask for your support. The election is August 26th. Again, my name is Frank Bocanegra. It's a very difficult name to forget. It actually, if you translate it, it means black mouth. So thank you all, and for giving me this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bell.
My name is Mark Bell. I live at 343 Northwest 19th Street, Homestead, Florida. I would like to thank the mayor, vice mayor, and the council for allowing me to come here and speak to you today. What I want to speak to you today about is our electric bill. I come as a homeowner and a business owner in our town, so I have two electric bills. I would like to know why 3/4 of the city pays up to 30% more than if they had FP&L on their residential bill, and up to 50% more on their commercial bill. The reason that I'm appearing before you today is because the only place in all of Dade County where your electric bill is not controlled by the Public Service Commission is Homestead, Florida. In Homestead, the only people that control our electric rates are the mayor, vice mayor, and the council. You folks are the ones that we can come to that can lift this heavy burden from our shoulders. In previous years, the power company has made a $5 million profit off of the business and residents in the South, the Southwest, the Northwest, and the Northeast sections of our city. Yes, a large portion of the Southeast is not burdened with these outrageous rates. Why, you might ask? Well, they happen to be the lucky ones, and their power is supplied by FP&L. Last year, you lowered the millage rates for everyone in the city, giving back an average of between $40 to $200, depending on the price of your home. Let me share with you what this council cost me in business last year. $10,000 extra is what I paid above and beyond what I would have paid if it was FP&L rates. All right? Yes, I paid $10,000 more. If I use the same rates, the same kilowatt hours, FP&L would have charged me $10,000 less money for my business. I would have saved $10,000 last year, and that's just my business. It's not even counting my house. These figures would even make it higher. I believe in fairness, and I think that this council does too. So I ask, is it fair that 3/4 of the city pay higher residential rates while 1/4 of the city does not? and that 3/4 of the businesses pay higher rates while 1/4 does not? Is it fair that you lowered the whole city's millage rate, but you over the years have continually raised the electric rates on only 3/4 of the city? Last year you made over $5 million profit by overcharging 3/4 of the city on their electric bill, while the southeast section of our city paid nothing into this $5 million profit. But what that money does do is it benefits the whole city. So we've got Mr. Williams, Mr. Maldonado, Mr. Shelley, Mr. Burgess. Your guys' community is carrying a heavier load for the rest, for the whole of Homestead, where we've got a section of our community that doesn't. All we're asking is that you bring the same rates that the citizens of Homestead pay to Homestead Electric to what FP&L pays. And then it would be a fair and equitable system. Then I would be paying the same amount of taxes everybody else in this town is. But right now, you tax us through our electric bills, and 3/4 of the city pays more, a lot more, than the whole city does. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what did he want?
Kevin Pedersen, 29430 Southwest 172nd Avenue, Homestead, Florida. Same thing. Kind of, maybe it's a steamroll here, but it is a concern that a lot of us have. And it was brought to my attention, and it was like the first time in years that I was actually able to use my engineering degree and come up with numbers. And my wife and I own 2 Goodyear tire stores, one in Cutler Bay, Florida, and one in Homestead, Florida. Very similar businesses, same size buildings. The power for our Cutler Bay store is provided by Florida Power and Light. They charge us 0.098 kilowatts per hour, 0.098 cents kilowatts per hour. In Homestead, we're charged 0.143. My last bill in Cutler Bay was $459.30. My present bill with Homestead is $638.27. If I had the same kilowatt per hour charges at my Homestead store as I am at my Cutler Bay store, which means if I was charged the same amount by Homestead Power as I am charged by Florida Power and Light, my bill in Homestead would be reduced by over $200 a month, which is really the same power. I mean, it's just being produced really the same places. It's being moved around different ways. And so that to me is an issue. The other issue I have is that my house, which is not in the city of Homestead, and I'm not a citizen of Homestead, I cannot vote, although I would vote for nearly all of you. I promise you, I love you guys. I do. And, but I can't vote for you. I'm thankful that I can address you now, as previously I was told I couldn't. But my house is on Homestead Power, and my house pays about 27% more than if I was billed by Florida Power and Light. So I have no say-so over your elections, or I have no say-so over the very people that are establishing my rates. Some of us that are considered maybe conservative people would say that's taxation without representation, but I do think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. I do know that the citizens of Homestead who pay power from Homestead Electric are paying almost 30% more than they'd be paying if they were just billed by Florida Power and Light. I know my business is paying almost 47% more. That's a fact. So I wish we would consider it. I know it's an issue because it is monetary issues that we have to raise money. But I think we all want to bring this to attention to the community. And I think that individuals need to know it. I think individuals that are paying their bill need to realize it so that they can appeal to their representatives to maybe get a change if it's possible. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Ferguson.
Good evening. Gary Ferguson, lifelong resident. Basically the same thing Kevin said. I've lived in this town my entire life, just outside of it. And I paid city power my entire life, not only for my business, which has been here since 1957, but my house, which is on Biscayne. And again, I don't get to vote either. But what I do have here is, again, a comparison. I have a 1,200 square foot house now in
Northgate, and I paid $224 for the power, and I have about a 5,000 square foot house on FP&L that I paid $182 for. You know, and there's quite a bit of difference there in the two. But what I would like to see is for you guys to review this a little bit, because you don't, and it's not like the state FP&L has a board or whatever. You guys are the board, and you know, if you could review it. But one of the biggest things that I think is FP&L offers rebates and stuff like that on air conditioners and things like that, which the city of Homestead does not do. And this is critical. I mean, if we're going to charge more power, at least give us something back. You know, if we use solar panels or if we upgrade our electric or something like that, and give those rebates to the folks at Homestead. That's something that I think you really need to look into. And you know, or possibly just going straight with FP&L. I know we've had this debate. I heard the same debate 20 years ago and 10 years ago. And maybe we need to look at it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Mayor, question. This is to maybe Ken can answer this, or somebody within the staff. Gentleman just said that something about rebates. At one point in time, didn't we have rebates of those that were upgrading or going to a less efficient system for? Didn't we have anything in place prior, or no?
Yeah, Mr. Williams, Mayor and Council, we do have some rebates.
That's what I wanted to be put on the record, because I don't want it to be said that we don't have anything, but we do. Okay. Could you elaborate for about 15 seconds on what those things are?
Maximum on an AC unit is $350. Maximum on insulation is $250. $50 on AC maintenance, and $25 on water heater timers.
All right. Thank you. Another question. May I, Mayor? Thank you so very much. The other issue that I heard was that the percentages. In your estimate, in dealing with that, how far are we off from the billion-dollar company FP&L as far as rates adjustments?
You know, I heard the number of 30%
Yes.
for residential. I think that's a little high.
Okay.
If you factor in everything, I think it's maybe closer to 15.
15.
I'd really have to look at the rates that FP&L has right now, because they move around more than ours do.
Mm-hmm.
And commercial would take even more looking into. But if you'd like those numbers, I can get them for you.
Would you do that for me, please?
Yes, sir.
And provide it to all of my colleagues. Another follow-up question, Mayor, may I? Even in dealing with those rates, I was under the assumption maybe 3 or 4 years ago that we dropped the rates at one point in time, that we dropped the rate. I'm not sure how much. Do you remember? We had an adjustment in the rate.
We did drop
It lowered from where it was to where it is now.
We did drop the power cost adjustment a couple of dollars about 4 or 5 years ago, and our rates have been steady since then.
Okay.
And our base rate has actually been the same for about 8 or 9 years.
Okay. And so my understanding is that there's a study that's being performed and will be brought back to the council. I just wanted to be sure that we don't, it said that we don't have these, different initiatives, and we do. I know that sometimes if you want to look at how your power bill is adjusted, I know we have staff that can go out, survey your whole property, to see, what can be done inside the house to try to drop the bill. And the other issue is that, unfortunately, the way our billing system is, it includes sewer, garbage, and the electrical, all on one bill, right? And so I'm not sure as a person's looking at the bill and they see the final number. My bill last month was $221. but I would say 50% of that was divided up from the garbage and all of the other things that comes on that one bill. So, you know, perhaps we need to do a public workshop on the issue so that we all have accurate information. Look at the rates. I know that Barbara is coming back with some different items. So hopefully, so that we can address and educate our citizens who need to know the information about Homestead versus Florida Power and Light, and what other things we may add or have that the consumer could take advantage of. So thank you so much,
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. Just going back to Mr. Williams's comment, we have in, I believe it was December, Catherine, of last year, right, is when we rolled out the new bill that had everything color-coded. Was it December or January? I can't remember. But everything is color-coded on the bill now to make it simpler for people to understand that water is in blue and is a certain charge and all that. So we have done a lot on the city's half to try to educate the people and let them know that there are other charges other than just electric in there also. So we did have workshops, I know, back prior to that with consumer groups that we worked with diligently to make sure that they understood and were able to read the bill easily before we started the new process too. So
yeah, I just didn't want to give the impression that some of the issues or concerns. We did drop the rates,
right,
you know, for a couple years ago, and that we do have incentives in upgrading a house, or however, of rebates that can go towards that. So, you know, those items, concerns, we can readily address. I'm not sure exactly how much else do we want to drop the rates. And I think, you know, FPNL is a lot larger company. They're able to do a lot more, and so, you know, just apples to apples, you know, I like to look at that, just not the waste, the water, and all of that, but just the Homestead utilities and FPNL. That's it. Because sometimes I get the bill, and it's not all, the 221 is not all for my electric. You know, a portion of it is. So, you know, I want to put that on the record.
Anything else, Mr. Burgess? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the other thing, too, is that a couple months back, we commissioned someone to do a study, if I remember right. Is that correct, City Manager? To actually look at this issue, because it was a concern that was raised by a lot of people. And so we did take action already. We've asked for a consultant to come in and a study to be performed to find out, can we make our power plant more efficient, get some actual real numbers that we can look at, and then once we have some real facts and figures, we can make some decisions from there. So I think that's going forward as we speak, and so we're waiting for that information to come back.
That's all, sir. I know it is a concern for everybody, and everybody said we are addressing it, and we have to be prepared at the end of the day. If it comes back that we can only save so much, then we have to sit around the table and find out what do we do without as a community, because our ad valorem taxes don't even pay for our police department. So there would be, you know, there may be a need to make some serious cuts if necessary in order to pass back a huge utility reduction rate. So it's part of the analysis, but at the end of the day, if we do make a decision to pass back a utility rate reduction, an additional rate reduction, we might have to be prepared to find out what we don't want to have happen as a service to the community. So I appreciate you gentlemen bringing it forward, because I know it has been an issue, and I asked the director of the utilities the other day about the timing on the study, and I think she said she had it back, Mr. Manager, but I know it's not ready for presentation, but obviously we need to move on that.
They have a preliminary. We're going to be meeting hopefully next week to discuss it and to see what else needs to be done on it, and then as soon as it's ready, we'll get it to you and we'll have the discussion.
Okay, so for the record, we'll make sure that you gentlemen know when that study's out, and so that you can be involved in the discussion as far as moving forward with this process, because we are going to be looking at it in some tough ways. So, but thanks again. So, yes, sir, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Jose Molina, 695 Southeast 30th Drive, Homestead, Florida. The reason why I'm here is because I want to bring up to your attention, to all of you, and the city as well. I'm a soccer coach. I'm a volunteer soccer coach, actually. I've been doing that for the past 7 years, and it's well known by many of you that we have a lack of soccer facilities here. Soccer facilities mainly with lights. Kids need to practice during the week to be able to perform on the weekend. So it is a necessity. It's been a necessity in this town, and then I've seen a lot of very wonderful studies being made by the Parks and Recreation 10 years ago, and it was an issue back then, and to this date it's still an issue. There are many grants that are out there, they're available. There are, a great need. Like I said, I think I'm representing maybe 1,100 kids that use our recreational leagues and use our competitive leagues as well. We travel all throughout Florida, and we have seen, what a town can do when they come together and they make it a priority. So I'm requesting that, to make it a priority this year. Perhaps this is the concept that gets it done, that makes it happen. We're here. We want to be able to work with you, as a consultant on what's needed. Perhaps, there's different venues that we can look at. Now that the lay is out and that the Homestead Sports Complex is there, that's a possibility there. That we can convert perhaps a couple of those fields into soccer fields and to be able to use them. One thing that I wanted to bring here is that I've seen a lot of proposals saying that we can use a football field with soccer. One of the things I want to bring up with that is actually you cannot. Not in a safe way anyways. As you know, in the football field, line of scrimmage, what do? They, the linesmen, what they do is they dig really deep, and this creates a lot of holes, which is a liability really actually for our kids. So when you bring it to discussion, if you can, please have that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Waldman?
Yes. Sir, what league do you represent?
I'm sorry?
What league do you represent?
Well, I have coached at AYSO, and I also...
I'm sorry, you what?
I have coached, right.
But
Volunteer coach at AYSO, and I also coach at Homestead Soccer Club. But I'm coming to you as a citizen of Homestead.
The reason I'm asking is that, we've been working diligently with AYSO and any other soccer group that have come to us, and we've met with several people.
Right.
We have moved forward. I'm going to ask Pedro, our Assistant Director of Parks and Recs, to give a full, well, we can't do a full report, but to give you information. But we have moved forward, so I just want you to know that we are addressing it. Pedro, would you please?
Yes, this year, since we did get the stadium back from La Ley, we have been in contact with AYSO, and they will be doing their fall season at the softball fields out there on the lighted fields, as they did in years past. And we have looked into the Mayor Roscoe Warren, and at this time, since we did get those new fields freed up, we're tabling that project in the meantime. But we do have the plans for it. We have the options for the payment and all that.
Now I know that it has been that has been done in the past, and it's a temporary fix.
No.
And what I want to know is if that's going to be home. In other words, that we're going to be able to call it home for soccer exclusive facility with lights.
For this season, it is.
For this season, right?
Yes. And if you have a lot of, I'm not familiar where the kids come from for Homestead Soccer. I'm very familiar with AYSO. But you know, you also need to contact your county commissioners because Dade County Parks need to provide some of this as well. City of Homestead can only provide what we can provide, but we're doing a good job and we are giving you lights. And we've already discussed it with AYSO. As far as the Roscoe Warren Park, you have beautiful daytime fields there. I know there was a grant we are pursuing, but we have a balance that we have to balance here in the city, and we have beautiful parks. And we have football, we have baseball, we have soccer. So we try to give, you know, consideration for each one of those sports. And I suggest we have a sit down.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you and I and our Parks and Recs directors, and so that we can fill you in on everything that's going on.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And if
Mayor.
Heather's gone, but if Elizabeth, if you could get his information, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. So, oh, he's your neighbor. Okay, great. Then if you could just give Elizabeth your contact information, I'll be in touch, and Pedro and David and I'll make sure that we have something set up for you next week. Okay. Okay? Yeah. And thanks so much for volunteering and giving your time. And I know I was team mother to my son's baseball team for about literally about 12 years, and the dedication and devotion that the coaches put in, I sincerely want to give you my you know, honest appreciation and gratitude.
So, Ms. Waldman, Mr. Maldonado, and then Mr. Williams.
Mayor, through you, to Councilwoman Waldman, the question that I've had asked from through the community as well, the soccer community, is that what they're looking for is kind of that, and I heard the gentleman mention where just a home court, somewhere where that's dedicated just to soccer. And so the question that I asked, or it was asked as well, is that, or do we have any plans to convert these fields that were once softball fields, because originally it was a baseball complex, and so are the fields that the AYSO is currently playing on, they're softball fields that they're kind of using in between. And so the question that they're asking is that, will you guys at some point convert those to permanent soccer facilities? Because if we look around town, we see that there's, you know, dedicated baseball fields, dedicated football fields, but there's no one park in the city of Homestead that's dedicated to soccer fields. Now, Mayor Roscoe Warren Park does have dedicated soccer fields, but that's considered more of a residential come out and play a game, as opposed to where a location where tournaments could be played and the development of soccer leagues and teams would be able to play at. And I think that's what they're looking for. And so again, that's the question that's been asked. So the question is there a plan in place? Are we working on something to put something permanent in those lit fields that are not currently permanent soccer fields?
I can answer that, Mayor Porter, if you don't mind. I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is going to be, I had planned on bringing this up during the budget process, and I haven't had my meetings yet with the city manager, but there comes a time when we have to decide, are we going to keep that stadium? Are we going to keep it? After the police are finished and they're in their new facility, are we going to keep it? Or are we going to, again, try to sell it? You know, my dream is to have a regional park there, make a home for any of the children that need a home if they're with their organized sports. And I did a master plan in 2005 or 6 showing that I wanted that parcel to be a regional park. And it's a gorgeous piece of land. And I think once the police are finished and they're moving into their permanent home, it'd be my desire to have that remain in our city and have that be, just as I said, and maybe even add to that, where we have some a facility to rent out for different functions and such. So that's something that we have to talk about, but I'm glad you're on the same brainwave that I am. And Mr. Gretzis, that's something that, again, we haven't had our meeting yet, but that was something I wanted to add.
Well, ironically enough, I asked Eileen this afternoon
and I haven't had a conversation.
to call your offices tomorrow to start scheduling our once that time of year again. I've already had conversations with the park staff about, we're going to have a long conversation with you all about this particular piece plus other pieces. This one here, we can identify what the costs would be to include it in the budget. Also recognize that once you make a decision to have that, it's a legacy cost, and you're going to see the full picture of the budget and what you have and what you don't have, and
Right.
that'll be the first discussion. But
Yeah.
I know everybody wants something, and, I know it's a very tough position that you're all in. There's limited amount of money, and there's an unlimited amount of desires and needs and wants, and so it's just a function of deciding.
And sir and Councilman, it's unfortunate that, we had 2 city buildings that need to be replaced immediately. So with the transformation of the stadium to the temporary police headquarters, that's taken so much work. And then we moved the city hall, and now we're building the new city hall, and we're trying very hard to move forward, but we haven't forgotten the children. And that's so important that you know that these AYSO fields will be available. Pedro, when we have our meeting, we can talk about the Homestead Soccer Club. I'm not sure if we have any contracts going on with them now, but we certainly want to accommodate everybody. And as far as the regional park or not regional park, whether this council decides that they want to go back out, try to find somebody to buy the stadium, or whether we want to do something with it, rent it out for games, rent it out for concerts. We have to have revenue in order to maintain. And I get it, George. I saw that look he was giving me. That you have to be able to pay for it. If we make that decision, it's going to be an ultimate decision. But I'm certainly willing to work for it. I look forward to meeting with you. And thanks, Councilman.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you so very much. Let me ask a question in my we do all of, are we providing, are there contracts on the table for renting these soccer fields that we're providing upgrades to and conversion and all of that? Or are we saying that for the good of the community, this is something that we would like to do? Or will there be contracts to rent the fields? Some subsidies from the organization. First question. Number 2, dealing with the lights, is there no lights at Roscoe Warren Park at all?
Not at this.
For the fields.
For the soccer fields.
For the soccer fields. And so my first question then, is it going to be like the football that we do, that we contract out for the fields at Harris Fields? Would it be like the Pop Warner football? Is it going to take that kind of effect once these?
Thank you for you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. I'm going to ask Pedro because I don't have access to the contracts because that's the city manager's jurisdiction. But I do know we have contracts with all the leagues. So if you'd address that, Pedro.
Yes, for soccer, we have AYSO as our yearly soccer provider. We don't have any other contracts with any other leagues.
But we have football, baseball, we have all
football,
that.
baseball, basketball.
Yes, tennis. We have all of that.
So in the contracts, they're using our fields? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then in the contract, we say that we take care of the field upgrades or provide lightings and all that. Is that in the contract? What is the contract about?
Basically, the contract allows them to utilize the fields to provide the program.
And then they pay the city what?
They pay the city the lining and light fees. So we charge them the cost for the lights, for the hours that they use, and we charge them for the lining, the field lining.
So where do they play at if they have no lines? What fields do they use?
This is AYSO.
AYSO at the stadium they'll give us their schedule ahead of time. We come up with the amount of hours that they're using and the amount of lining that they'll be required, depending on their schedule, and they pay us that.
Okay, what I'm saying is there any present contracts today with the soccer companies?
No, we do the contract every season. So, for instance, for this fall season, once they come up to us with their registration, they'll provide us their schedule, and we'll provide them their costs, and they'll pay the contract for that season.
If you'd like to see a prior contract...
No, I'm just trying to figure out where do they play at. where's the practice the games? Where? What field?
Explain to them the
The
fields that they're
softball
using.
field, the softball fields at the sports complex.
Okay, so they're playing on softball fields.
Yes, on the outfield.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And we'll be happy to, the season hasn't started with registration yet, but if anybody would like to see, I don't even have them, but I'm sure our Parks and Recs department would be happy to provide, you know, a sample of
Yeah,
the contract.
I'm just a little confused because they want lights at the at Roscoe One Park, and then are there any soccer fields, converted soccer fields at the sports complex at all?
We had soccer fields. I mean, I'm assuming that they're still.
The sports complex has 4 lighted softball fields, and what we do is for the soccer season, we paint soccer fields in the outfields, in the grass area of the softball fields.
Okay, I know I'm getting technical now, but what is the difference in the ground that they need, the soccer players, versus the softball?
There is no difference in the ground. It's just on the grass. They play on the grass on the outfield.
Okay, but see, what he's saying is it's different. So what I'm trying to get at is that he's saying one thing, the person at the mic, and then we're saying another, and we're saying there's no difference in the ground. There's no difference in the makeup of what they need to play on. So I guess at some point we need to have you all need to have a discussion on what will be provided, because my understanding, the gentleman is saying that the fields are not the same as it would be for soccer and anything else.
We've looked at the cost of lights at Roscoe Warren, and it's in the millions. I can't think of the number. I wasn't prepared for this, but it's in the millions. But there was a grant that we were pursuing, but it was. Are we still? Is that grant still on the table?
We have a grant company looking for grants right now.
Right, 4 lights for
4
Roscoe Warren. But I know what you're saying. You're saying that the dirt needs to be graded a certain way, grass needs to be graded a certain way. Well, I assure you that when soccer's finished, they have to redo those softball fields to get them in shape for the softball league. So it's a turnover situation, and that's how it's done. It's not a professional soccer field, but it's certainly what Dade and Pedro has been with Dade County for how many years? 14 years in Parks and Recs. So he can address how Dade can you address that? How Dade County handles their soccer fields?
Pretty much in the similar forms that we do. They're multi-purpose fields. They don't have any field designated. They're similar to the ones at Roscoe Warren Park. For football season, we use them for football. Soccer season, we use them for softball. Baseball season, we use them for baseball.
And we've never had AYSO complain to us, ever. When we've sat down at a table, we've never had any complaints. So this is news to
Councilwoman,
me.
if I could interject here, does he have a list of the children that are involved with the program and their addresses, so that we know how many of them are from Homestead and how many of them are from outside the city?
Do you have a registration list?
I'm pretty sure that we do, yes.
What percentage of them are from Homestead versus?
It's hard to tell.
Half and half? Is it 20% from Homestead, 80% from outside the city?
Again, it's hard to tell.
And have you, contacted the county or attended a county commission meeting to discuss this with them as well?
I have not. Today is the first time that I actually.
So I think the point you've heard tonight is that, to a certain extent, if you have children from outside the city, it would also be nice to have some sort of a partnership or somebody else bear some of the cost of this, because the city can't do it all. And I can rewind back to a meeting from 4 or 5 months ago where people said they wanted 20 more police officers, and there's no money for those. And so there's a whole lot of priorities that the city has. And in the meantime, it'd be nice to know what percentage of your students are from the city.
And the reason why I brought this up was because, and I have seen the studies done in the past, and I've lived here 30 years already, and I have seen, the tennis courts built up, the baseball courts built up with lights, and so on and on. But I have not seen a soccer dedicated soccer field, which has been brought up in the past in the studies. I haven't seen it. And that's the reason why I'm bringing it up here now, because it has been done in the past. In other words, the study has been done in the past that.
But it would be extremely helpful to us when you meet with Councilwoman Waldman, if you can bring a list for us so that we can see of the number of students that are in your program and how many of them are from the city, that live inside the city, and how many of them are outside, so that we can try to assess the actual demand from our residents.
Okay.
Okay, let me just finish off here. We're going to keep going. There is a dedicated field. It's at Roscoe Warren Park. It doesn't have lights on it. You're looking for lights. There's a cost involved in that. Make sure that when we're talking to AYSO, we're talking to AYSO, the leadership in AYSO. I don't know who the players are. So, Ms. Waldman, you have the ball. And, you know, I mean, this is just a public comment section. So if we can, just move on, because there's a lot of things that you guys need to do, and explain to this gentleman what you're doing and what your plans are, okay?
We'll be happy to.
Everybody okay? Yes. Okay. That's all, sir. Thank you. Any more public comments?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. My name's Stephen Milan, and I'm running for Circuit Court Judge. Actually, I'm running to be your Circuit Court Judge. And I'm running because I believe that judges need to be involved in the communities that they serve in. To me, a judge serves as the conscience of the community. Yet how can one serve as the conscience of the community if you're not involved in the community, if you don't know the community? The first time a person meets a judge should be in the community, not in a courtroom. It's like having a pastor who believes in the health of his congregation just based on what sits in front of him and doesn't realize there may be homeless people sitting on their door. We have a great community here, very diverse. We have a county that's bigger than 17 states, according to Mayor Jimenez, and certainly with a population equivalent to the island of Manhattan. And yet, we're a family, not a county. It's like a big extended family. At least that's how I look at it. I've got 5 boys, so what do I know? With that said, though, I've been working with our youth in the Kiwanis, setting up mentoring programs in partnership with the Dade County Schools, from Booker T. Washington High School and all the feeder schools, setting it up and to mentor to the children, read to the children, working on literacy, setting up scholarship programs for when those children are eligible for college. Working with our Boy Scouts through my church, St. Timothy. My Scouts love Homestead. We do a lot of camping down here. We do a lot of public projects down here, working in the migrant camps. Homestead is home, at least for Troop 8 and Pac 8. Working also through the Alapata YMCA. Why? Because our children are our future. And at the end of the day, the people who come through the court system today are very good people who make mistakes. Because there's no perfect person. There's only been one in the history of humanity. But you need a judge who knows the community, who's sensitive to the community, and knows that Homestead's part of our larger county, and that's why I'm here. So thank you for this opportunity to address you. Thank you for the opportunity to be down here, and I look forward to your vote on August 26th. Again, my name is Steve Milan. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, I see no more public comments, so I'm going to close the public comments at this time and move on in the agenda. We've got any additions, deletions, or deferrals, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney? None? No additions? Presentation from our lobbyist in Tallahassee, Mr. Levy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Manager. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you for making the time. I think you all know Jose Diaz, my associate, and Eric Ashante is somewhere else in this very big and diverse county that Steve Milan defined as the large county that we come from. Next session, 2015, will be the 25th year that we've had the pleasure of representing this city. 25 years of history with the city of Homestead, very proudly. So let me begin by telling you the good, the bad, and the ugly that took place this year in Tallahassee, most of which you've read about by now. So I'm going to try to touch on some things that you might not have read about and try to update you on some of the other news. This was a very small session in terms of the number of bills that were filed. There are only 1,800 bills filed. It's the lowest number in at least 20 years that have been filed. Only 264 bills passed. Those of you that follow legislative history know how low a number that is. That includes all the resolutions, all the mandatory bills that have to pass every year, the budget bills, et cetera, et cetera. We had the largest budget in the history of the state of Florida. When I started in Tallahassee, the budget was $30 billion. This budget was $77 billion. And let me address that for a moment, because while everyone may not agree with me, I'm speaking my personal opinion, there was $1.5 billion surplus of revenue to the state. I think it's sad that with $1.5 billion, we didn't give our state employees a pay raise. Our state employees haven't had a pay raise since Saddam Hussein was in power. I think it's sad when you have that much revenue to not take care of the people that make your state run. We didn't create one new trial-level judgeship in the state of Florida. We haven't had a new judge in Florida since Jeb Bush was governor. Sadly, and this city has been the beneficiary at times, we have a film incentive program, a great economic program that creates tax incentives for people to bring films. Many films that have been filmed at the track here have benefited from that program. We didn't fund that program for the second year in a row. Very sad. We're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in feature films as a result of that. Probably the saddest and most direct impact on Homestead was that we failed by the tune of $600 million to fund the required local effort for the school system. Now, what does that mean? First of all, you know that your property taxes, your property values are raising. I know that Patricia Fairclough knows very well what that means. You know that your property values are rising, thankfully, finally. So your constituents are going to see higher property taxes. The school board has no choice but to raise property taxes to fill the pot of the required local effort. Constitutionally, they have a number that they have to reach to meet the FEFP, the Florida Education Funding Program. So the legislature left $600 million on the table and didn't fund that required local effort at the school board. That's going to result in direct increased property taxes for every one of your constituents. So that was the good news. And by way of comparison, we cut $500 million in taxes. So that $500 million could have very well gone into the required local effort for the school system. And what did we cut? We cut $395 million in license fees. Now that sounds great, $395 million. Everyone's saying, when do I get my check? There isn't one person in the state, if they exercise every one of those license fees, that'll get more than $25. So I don't know how anyone else feels, but I'd be happy to give my $25 to the school system. While we're talking about the school system, and I know charter schools are always a very sensitive issue, but public schools, to me, are even more sensitive. We have 233,000 students in charter schools in Florida. We have 2.6 million students in public schools. For the last 3 years, we didn't give one dime of PICO money to the public school system. PICO money, for those that don't know what it is public education capital outlay. It's funded through your cell phones and through a variety of other means. 3 years, $90 million a year, directly to charter schools. Directly. Without any concern whether they were public, private, owned by municipalities. And when those schools falter or fail, we own nothing. We have no vested rights to the building or the structure. This year, I'm happy to say, for the first time in 4 years, we put $50 million into public schools. But because they couldn't help themselves, they put $75 million into charter schools. So remember those numbers, $75 million for 233,000 students, $50 million for 2.6 million students. We had our fair share of gun bills. That's almost assured, if you're in Tallahassee, there are going to be gun bills. There were 12 bills that passed. That's, if you do the math, that's about 5% of the bills that passed in the state of Florida were gun bills. One of them was the so-called warning shot bill. I call it the bad shot bill. I don't know how you're going to determine whether somebody's a bad shot or they fired a warning shot. I don't know. The other was the so-called Pop-Tart bill. Because some student in Maryland chewed a Pop-Tart into a play gun and pointed it at a student and got suspended, we had to pass a bill that said a student couldn't be charged if they chewed an object into a fake gun. The one bill that failed, that I'm very, very pleased, and by the way, 4 hours of debate on the floor on the Pop-Tart bill. 4 hours of riveting debate on the Pop-Tart bill. The one bill that failed, which I thought was a terrible bill, even though it did pass the House, I call it the riot bill. That bill said that you may have people that live in the city of Homestead that own guns that don't qualify for a permit. They don't qualify for any kind of a gun permit because maybe they've been Baker Acted, maybe they have domestic abuse records, maybe they have serious criminal records. For whatever reason, there's nothing that says they can't own a gun, but they can't carry it. This bill said, under any condition of a riot or declared emergency of any kind, anyone could carry a gun anywhere. Anyone could carry a gun anywhere. You could carry a gun into a shelter. Now, there's a great environment for somebody who might have some kind of problems to carry a weapon into. The regional planning councils, which I'm sure the manager and others have worked with, for the fourth year in a row was funded at $2.5 million and vetoed. Those dollars were vetoed. So there's been a consistent attempt over the last decade to just do away with any kind of controlled growth from a state level. The one piece of good news, but only if you had anybody that applied, this is the first year in the history of the state that every cultural grant program that was applied for was given. We funded $54 million in cultural affairs and arts grants, the largest in the history of the state. Just by way of comparison, the largest amount previous to that was in 2001. It was $34 million. Just to give you the history, last year, $12.7 million, and the year before, $9.8. So that's a substantial leap to get there. So hopefully the trends in the budget will continue, and I would urge any of your community organizations that are involved in the arts to apply and get in line, because I think hopefully we'll have the same kind of surplus next year. Affordable housing, I know it's near and dear to Councilman Williams. For the first time in 10 years, was fully funded, both ship and sale dollars. And it's the first time, even though it's been funded before, those dollars were always rated and taken to another source. So it's the first time in 10 years we've actually funded affordable housing. Gaming. You all know that nothing happened in gaming. Notwithstanding a $400,000 study, I have no idea what they studied, but they spent $400,000 studying it, and statewide hearings over the entire summer, laborious 6, 8, 10-hour meetings. Nothing whatsoever happened in the gaming arena. But that is on the agenda because the Seminole Compact is up next year. So the legislature is in a position where they have to do something next year with the compact. You know that municipal pension reform and state pension reform have been on the table now for 3 or 4 years. The municipalities came to the table and we made an agreement, primarily on the use of insurance revenue to use for funding of police and firefighter salaries, but the bill failed. Even though everyone was in agreement, they just ran out of time. I know that the city, I believe the city has red light cameras. There wasn't a day that we didn't fight an amendment on red light cameras, trying to either do away with them, diminish their value, discussions on right on reds, and timing of the yellow light, and a series of probably 50 amendments over the course of 60 days to try to diminish the value to the cities. One amendment said, you can have red light cameras, you just can't have any revenue from them. All that revenue goes to the state. So I'm happy to tell you that nothing happened. I don't know the date, Mr. Manager, the contract from the city, but as I know the attorney knows, there's a major decision a week or so ago, which I'm sure will be appealed, but basically it said anybody that had a program in place before the law passed in 2010 is going to have to refund all of those tickets. So rest assured that'll be appealed, but it's on the horizon. One of the more interesting preemption arguments and debates, there was an attempt, it passed. There was an attempt to ban, well, it wasn't an attempt. There was a bill that became a law to ban e-cigarettes for children under 18. It became an interesting thing to watch because legislators, some from Dade, I would suggest, amended it to remove all, to preempt municipalities from any tobacco regulation whatsoever. There's 700 ordinances in Florida, local ordinances on tobacco, things like whether you can show the cigarettes publicly, if you have to keep them under the shelf, all the rules on the day-to-day sales. So they wanted to preempt it. So it became very interesting because when the bill came up, the Lung Association, the Heart Association, all of the tobacco-related care, Cancer Society, were speaking against the bill. So if you just happened to walk in that day, you'd say, why are they speaking against an attempt to ban e-cigarettes from minors? But it was to avoid that preemption. We were finally able, with the assistance of the League of Cities and our team, to stop that preemption. There was I know you're all familiar with what's been going on in the county with Uber and Lynx and all of the taxi regulations, but there was a bill, that another one that showed up maybe 20 times in different forms, to totally preempt any regulation at a local level of taxi cabs. That's always been an issue for Homestead because of the location and the distance from the airport to port. Those bills all died, but there was a very significant attempt, and it'll be back again because those companies haven't gotten their way. Local business tax. The bill that passed, there was an attempt again to do away with local business tax, the former so-called occupational tax, which without it, you probably have no, once you give zoning to any business, you have no way of knowing who's operating in your city without a business tax. The bill that passed gives you the authority to repeal or reduce by a simple majority the business tax in your city, if you so choose to do. If you read the current law, there were all kinds of bells and whistles to go through before you could touch the business tax, comprehensive studies, comparative studies. Now you have that option to either increase it or decrease it as you wish. There was a bill to reduce the communication service tax again, a very stable source of revenue for the municipalities. We were able to stop that, notwithstanding the fact that it was sponsored by the two chairs of Finance and Tax. This is probably a sensitive issue. Well, I know it was. I just heard it was. There were very serious attempts to take all municipally owned utility companies and put them under the Public Service Commission. Your application fee for your annual license to be under the Public Service Commission would be $90,000 a year. Just for the right to have them regulate you. Just for the right to have them regulate you. there were very serious attempts to do that, and there was a second bill that dealt with water and wastewater, putting all water and wastewater programs under the Public Service Commission. And both with power and with water, that if you export it, you couldn't charge an additional penny more than you charged your own local government, your own local residents. So your ability to make money from those utilities would diminish. I'm happy to tell you, and I shared this with Councilwoman Waldman today, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but we had really good luck with the funding of trails this year, rails and trails. The two rails and trails in the state that stand in front of Arab Biscayne Everglades Greenway, the BEG, the trail that the next president of the Senate wants that goes all the way across the state of Florida for $50 million, and the Ludlam Trail here in Dade County. Those were in line in front of us. They both got funded this year. So I don't know if we become number 1 or 2, but we're right at the top. But working with Rails and Trails and their staff both here and in Washington, they put together a program for me in behalf of Councilman Shelley and Waldman to show the health benefits of the trails. And I took that program to Phyllis Oders at Baptist Health and suggested that naming rights for the trails might be a good investment for Baptist. They just communicated today with Ken and the Rails and Trails program, and they're coming down in 2 weeks to do a presentation to Baptist, and hopefully it'll be a great example of public-private partnership, and we can get the dollars we need. $27,000, just $27,000 would put all the signage up on the BEG that we need and begin a community outreach program to talk about the health benefits. There was another very favorable court decision that I'm sure the attorney can tell you about, dealing with guns. As you're probably aware, I no doubt you're aware, in 2011, there was a bill that passed that said you can't discuss or pass or introduce any resolution dealing with guns that's less than state regulation. If you want more, I guess you could, but if you wanted less, you can't. The penalty for that was removal from office, and for every violation, a $5,000 fine. But it gave the governor the authority to remove you from office, unprecedented. So it was challenged based on the removal from office, and a circuit judge in Tallahassee last week, I believe, ruled that it violates the separation of powers of the Constitution and that the governor can't remove you pursuant to that new law. That'll be appealed, but it's a very positive step in local government and preemption and state rights and local government rights. One, I'm very happy I saw Rick is here. This is the first year I remember in the last 5 years that we actually didn't have a bill trying to erode the authorities of the local government to deal with CRAs. First time in probably 5 years that we haven't had something to diminish the importance and the value of the CRAs. The bill that failed, that has to pass next year, as you may be aware, the enterprise zones sunset in 2015. So we had a bill this year that apparently wasn't a priority for the legislature to extend that sunset to 2025. That bill failed. Just for lack of time, interest, we're going to have to move that bill next year, or we shut down our enterprise zones in 2015. I don't know if you're aware of this one yet. If you're not, you're going to love it. January of 2015, all elected officials in Florida at every level will be required to take an annual 4-hour course in ethics and the Sunshine Law as of January of 2015. Good news on the heft. The governor put it in his budget, and through the leadership of Holly Rasheen and Senator Bullard and Representative Keone McGee, we were able to keep it in. There is almost $7 million to six-lane the heft from Southwest 288th, I'm sorry, 16th to 288th. Something that we've all been working on for a long, long time. Mr. Mayor, I think that pretty well covers the big picture issues. I'd be happy to answer any questions or respond to any.
First of all, the heft is the Turnpike extension, right?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the Homestead extension of the
Okay.
Florida Turnpike.
Right. Any questions from council?
Talking about my weight.
Tricia?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for your very substantive legislative update. I have two questions. You just mentioned that in 2015, all elected officials will be subject to a 4-hour course. Is that in the state of Florida or Miami-Dade County?
It's the whole state.
Okay, will state representatives and Senate members be subject to Sunshine Law as a result of 2015?
Oh, no. First of all, they don't need to take the course because they're not subject to the Sunshine Law.
Right, so they're going to propose that we take a 4-hour course on the Sunshine Law, but they're not subject to the Sunshine Law.
And you know, I sat with all respect to Daniela, who I have great respect for. You know, courses are of no value. You know, we either elect people who have integrity and honesty or we don't, and all the courses in the world aren't going to help, and all the ethics laws in the world aren't going to help. We have 1,000 laws in the book now. I mean, in my mind, I just think we just need to be aware of all those problems and face them at election time.
Okay, I have one more question. As the liaison to the Education Committee, I had one more question regarding education. Do you have any update on the proposed expansion of school vouchers? Has that been signed?
The bill is on the governor's desk right
It's
now.
on his desk.
And not being in the inner circle of the governor's circle, if there is such a thing, I don't know. My guess would be most assuredly that he'll sign it.
He will sign it.
I don't see any. I'd be shocked if he didn't, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Levy, I'm so proud that you have been our representative for so many years, 25, right? 25 years, amazing. And I've been so fortunate to be a part of half of that time with you. For those of you in the audience that don't know, this trailway is not just any trailway that I've been working on since 2001, actually 2002. It's a trailway that connects 2 national parks, the only trailway in the United States that would do this. And it's my legacy to Homestead. I mean, I have worked, and Bob has been by my side, Jose, the entire time, and I appreciate it. We've traveled many roads, and I've pounded the pavers in Washington, and nothing makes me happier to know how close we are. We are so close, I can taste it. It will be a mega tourism destination for people internationally. I've asked Mr. Shelley to assist me in this because of his love for the Everglades and Biscayne National Park as well. Not that we don't all share that, but if I could be a part of that meeting with Baptist, it would make me very proud. We have been able to uncover my original master plan for the trailway, which may help, and I'll be, Pedro's not here right now, but excuse me, I'll be happy to share that ahead of time with you so that we have all of that. I had that done back in 2005, 2006, but it's a 42-mile loop that actually connects the 2 national parks. We're the only city in the United States that has a national park at the front door and the back door, and Mr. Levy was so gracious to, actually he was there with me right when you're the first person I talked to about it. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate, admire, respect. And let me tell you something, folks. this man, you want to get around Tallahassee, this is the person to go to. He knows everybody. We are so lucky. Colleagues, we're just so lucky to have him. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done to help with this project I have.
Thank you. I hope we get to walk that trail together.
I hope so. I don't know if I can make 42 miles, but I'll certainly ride with you.
Any other questions for Mr. Levy? Mr. Levy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate all your help in Tallahassee. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Jose Bermudez, and I'm with the law firm of Becker and Poliakoff. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about what went on in the 2014 legislative session. But luckily for me, Mr. Levy did all that for me, so thank you, Bob. So that makes my presentation very short, but I definitely wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we were involved during this legislative session. My colleague Jose Fuentes could not be here today, but I came to talk to you a little bit about our efforts to ensure the speedway language for the elimination of the ad valorem tax on the public facilities leased to private entities would be passed. Our team worked very hard with the leadership of Senator Bullard. He attempted to amend on the sports stadium legislation, and unfortunately that effort did not pass. There was some misinformation circulated, and they had some numerous concerns, but you know, I know through several trips that the council took to Tallahassee, I am very confident that in the next legislative session we will be able to be successful at that effort. I believe that a lot of the members of the committee staff are a lot more educated on the issue, and I think we'll be more successful. We made tremendous progress, and we understand the urgency of that matter for the city, and we are excited to bring that up again next year and work. We've also been in communications with the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Beacon Council, Monroe County Government, and the offices of Representative Diaz, Senator Margolis, and Senator Bullard, and they're all ready to jump on board and help us through that effort. So we are excited for the next legislative session, as well as we would like to be a little bit early this year and work with also the Public Works Department to look at some of the infrastructure needs that the city has. This year, our law firm was very successful in obtaining several water projects for most of our municipalities. I believe 95% of the municipalities, Joe, don't laugh, 95% of our municipalities. So we expect that the budget is going to be a generous one next year as well. So we look forward to working with you guys and seeing what some of your priorities are, and start the process early this year, working this summer to ensure that we have some projects for the city of Homestead as well, and get you guys some money.
Thanks, Jose. I just want to kind of piggyback on what you just said. We need to start early. We can't wait till the session's in session. We can't wait till days to carry the torch. So whatever we need to do right now is what we need to do. I think this council's committed to whatever is necessary, whoever we need to talk to. So that's the thing that I think that we've historically done, is shown up after the party's over, so to speak. So, but our issues are our issues, and the Speedway ad valorem tax is one of our major concerns because of the lease payment dropping. And I know we've done a lot of legwork at this point, but legwork when we're late to the show. So let's get on that right away. And you got resource up here, so just let us know. But let's do it early. Any questions for Jose, anyone?
I just, again, want to say thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank both of you for all that you guys do for us. Jose, tell Jose thank you for his efforts as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Tab 2 is the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 7, or tab 8 is, but it's public hearings. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the counsel to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization, and further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communications they've had concerning the following agenda items. Hearing none, at this time, the clerk will swear in any persons who wish to testify on tab 8 and tab 9.
Could you please stand, state your name? I hereby swear or affirm that the information I present shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you. You may be seated.
Tab 8.
Yes, tab 8 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, considering the request of Edwin M. Eby for a rezoning of an approximately 21,228 square foot parcel from the restricted retail commercial B1 zoning district to the liberal business B3 zoning district for property located at 10 South Homestead Boulevard as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Is there a report from staff? Mr. Manager or Joe?
Yes, sir. This was before you last month. We're recommending denial of the ordinance that would have a rezoning of the subject property from B1 to B3. The request is for the parcel located at 10 South Homestead Boulevard. The intent is to use to put a pawn shop on the parcel. The property currently has the B1 zoning designation on it, and all of the parcels around it all have B1 zoning designations around it. The B3 uses that would be permitted here are all typically for more heavy or intensive commercial uses, which are not compatible with the B1 uses that are around it. This did go through the Planning and Zoning Board. It had a 2-2 tie, so the motion failed to approve it. Since we talked last, you had asked staff to come back with options for what could be done with an item like this. Essentially, we have developed, I think, 5 or 6 options that we had. The first one we had is to rezone the property straight out to B3, which was before you. The second one is to rezone the property from B1 to B3, but put a covenant on the property that would essentially could be anything, but in certain cases you'd have the applicant commit to just using the one use, the pawn use, out of all of the B3 uses on that property. We could amend the B1 code to allow for the pawn shop use, meaning migrate the pawn use into the B1 list of approved uses. We could do that and call pawns a special exception. We could do that and provide more restrictive limits like specific standards of distance requirements and those types of things. Since we've talked last, the applicant has proffered covenants on the property, which have declared that the property would be used only for the pawning use in the B3 and no other uses. So it would have all the B1 uses, and the only use that they would have is the B3 use of pawning. Other covenants they have about removing the illegal pole sign and bringing other things up to code. So that's our staff report. If you have any questions.
Joe, a question is to the covenant. If the property sells, does the covenant stay or does the covenant, is the covenant removed with the sale of the property?
The covenant runs with the land, so I believe the covenant stays.
So if the operator, if the owner now sells it, they have the exemption to do pawn there again, but they don't have the ability to do auto repair or?
Correct. The covenant would say that the only use that they could have out of the B3 would be pawn.
Okay. Okay. Council, any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
So with the new proffer from the company, and the staff is recommending denial, I guess from my understanding, what you've read, is that those options are available. Either we change B1 and include pawning within that, in the ordinance, as it will be written, or they do this covenant restrictions kind of thing here that it would only operate as a pawn shop and can't be done anything else with under the B3. So your recommending of the now is for the purpose that it does not match the rest of the B1s that's around there. There's no other pawn shop within the vicinity of this.
Yeah, we're recommending denial because of the, I think this is really spot zoning in a sense that we have a lot of B1 uses on the corridor surrounding this property, and the applicant simply wants to do another use. It's a more intensive use. It's in the B3 category, and we're just going to rezone the property of B3 in the middle of a B1 area, and that's what the comp plan calls spot zoning. That's
Okay.
why we're recommending denial.
What makes pawn shops more intensive?
The writers of this code believe that pawn shops were more intensive. They have a, so therefore they're in the B3.
Right, but you're interpreting what they're writing. So what is, when you use the word intensive, what is intensive about a pawn shop?
The B3 uses are typically things that you wouldn't necessarily have on your main street in your downtown, and so they are separated away from the less intensive uses. The B1s are more professional offices, those types of things. They grade out to more intense uses, I guess, like we had the issue with lawnmower repair shops or maintenance facilities and those types of things, and that's what we're calling intensive.
Okay. I don't see what makes a pawn shop more intensive in, or your definition of what it more intensive is. That's the only reason that you're recommending denial is because of that, right?
Yes, sir.
And can I ask the applicant a question?
Well, can we, this is basically right now, can you hold the question to really get the applicant up here?
Why you want me to hold my question?
Because I haven't heard anything from anybody else.
Well, but I still have the floor.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me get my question out of the way, and I don't have to come back. Please, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michael Puggle. Address is 10 South Homestead Boulevard, Homestead, Florida, 33030. I'm sorry. I'm registered.
We couldn't hardly hear what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Michael Puggle. The address is 10 South Homestead Boulevard, Homestead, Florida, 33030.
Yeah. My question is that there's no other use. This is going to remain a pawn shop if it passes tonight. That you don't want to do any other items on or any other things that can be done on a 3B usage. You're going to keep it as a pawn shop.
Yes, sir. And there's a binding contract in the letter of restricted covenants that if I ever did want to, I can't, because our letter of restricted covenants solely limits me to doing pawning. That's it. I can't do any other B3 function.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I want to ask, Mayor.
Mr. Burgess, did you have, okay, Mr. Burgess and Ms. Wallman.
Thank you. To Mr. Cordino, what's the difference between B1 and B3 landscaping requirements? Because they proffer up that they want to bring it up to code.
Well, it's not the code now, and it's in the B1. So
Right.
they've got a couple of issues that are not the code. That's the sign and the landscape requirements. So they really need to bring it up to the city's landscape code initially. There's no difference between B1 and B3. It just needs to be brought to code.
And tell me about this sign, because you called it illegal in your words there. So can you tell me about the sign that they have? I mean, I know what it is, but for the people
Right.
that may be listening.
This is an issue that we had dealt with back several years ago. It's a pole sign that that's not to code. I think we've got movable copy on it that's also not to code. Code's cited this, and the applicant has not brought it up to code.
So did they have outstanding code violations against them that have been unpaid?
I believe that's the case. Yeah, these things are not to code.
Okay, 'cause I have a real problem with somebody who wants to do a good job in the city and wants to be a leading business, comes here and says, I'll come within code if you give me something. So to the applicant, I have a real tough time with that. I think your business should be in code when you come here, not try to use this to bring your business within code. And I'll leave it at that, Mayor.
Ms. Waldman?
Well, regardless of what happens tonight, the sign needs to be in code. And I hope the applicant will agree with me on that, because that other people follow the rules of the city. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Other people follow the rules of the city, and I expect that everyone should do the same and no one should be treated differently. But with that being said, it was my recollection that last meeting that we asked our developmental service director, Joe Cordino, to come back with an alternative plan. And because of the traffic, because of all the things that happens on Washington Avenue, and now the new construction, and it's just going to be very congested there. You know, I really, studying my book, I have no problem with the alternative of just allowing it to be used for pond, nothing else with, nothing else, but just the pond. But the sign issue really does have to be addressed, and I hope that I mean, you're good business people. You've been in business in our city for a long time. As I'm aware of 2 businesses that you run. But again, I don't want to see anybody go out of business because they can't operate their business because of parking and congestion and everything else. And as I said last week, once you walk in there to your establishment on US 1 and you say, well, we can't help you here, you're going to have to go, 6 blocks over to be helped, they're out the door. They're going to go somewhere else. So I wanted an alternative, and you did a really good job coming back with your suggestions. But again, I'll leave it at that I have no problem with that. But regardless of what happens, that sign has to be brought up to code. So, Mayor, that's all I have to say. I know the gentleman wanted to speak, but I'll leave that up to you to decide when that should happen.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I guess just more comments than say questions. Although I do have one question, I guess, for staff. And so the applicant proffered a covenant, and it only allows for, of the B3, the only use it would allow would be the pawn shops. The rest have been ruled out, which is a positive thing in that respect for intensive uses. But who controls that covenant? Is it the city? So if another applicant, if they were to sell that property in 5 years from now, someone comes up and says, now we want to do something else that's within the B3, is that something that the city then has full discretion to change, or now that once that covenant's there, it's there, it locks it in?
Yeah, the city's in control. The city's the beneficiary of the covenant. So it would be up to the city to make the change. I think we have a term on this that it binds the property. It's in place for 30 years after the date of recording, and could be extended for successive periods of 10 years each for the property to which the covenants and conditions should apply. So it's up to the city to make that change.
Okay.
Somebody may request it, but you have the ultimate.
Right, we have the ultimate say. I guess my concern, though, is if you kind of open that door, once you open the crack a little bit, you now have a B3 zoning, which could, with another council sitting here be opened up for other uses, which are more intensive than probably anticipated to be on, say, a main thoroughfare there. So that's kind of one of my concerns. One of the questions I had, I know the answer to, but my concern in general about this particular rezoning is that I think that, typically you think of B1 uses, professional office uses along your main thoroughfares. That's kind of what people see when they drive through your town, whether it be Campbell Drive, whether it be US 1 on the way to the Keys or wherever they're going. And I don't know that this type of use is really what I want to be on my main thoroughfare. I don't know that a pawn shop use is what I want the city of Homestead to be known for, especially given the fact that we have, we're getting ready to revitalize our downtown, and the way people are going to get to our downtown is either coming from the south north on US 1 or from Campbell South. And so, where they have this main facility is going to be where a lot of people are going to be coming in and out of our hopefully revitalized downtown. So I have some concerns there. And the other thing is, even with the covenant, the operators are fine. The current operators, they've been running fine, a good operation, but they could easily sell that. It would still be a pawn shop use, and it may be transferred to other operators who are less, involved in the city. We had the discussion last council meeting, where the new owners come in and operate it, but they're not doing quite as good of a job in keeping it as nice of a facility as the owners that are applying for. So those are kind of my concerns. It's more of a comment than in questions at this point, but why I have a hard time supporting this particular aspect. However, I think that if the idea is to help this particular applicant, the B3 spot zoning is better than changing the code and potentially facilitating and encouraging additional pawn shops all along our thoroughfare and other B1. So, that would just be my other comment. That's all there.
Well, thank you. One of the things that you said is, I think the discussion really should be about what is our perception of pawn shop, because that's really what we're doing here, and I think that's where some of the questions have come from. Because I think earlier we said that probably when this code was written, pawn shops were, not something that they wanted in the community, so they put them in the corner in the dark where nobody would see them. That's why they put them in a B3. And part of the discussion was, now you have television shows, and there's kind of I don't know if it's more accepted, but it's got a different perception of what the code allows it to be. So, I think that's really kind of where we need to go. Is the discussion needs to be, how do we want to look at pawn shops? What does this council think pawn shop is? Is it something that belongs off the beaten path into a heavier industrial use area? And because that's what you're saying, that, following the code, that's what the code says. That's the way the code looks at pawn shops. So if this council wants to look at a pawn shop through a different process, meaning, like you said, special exception, somewhat like some of the hardware conversations that we've had, where it as many checks and balances as you can put on the process, you can't control the outcome and say that, pawn shops are not going to ever be allowed in Homestead. If they fit the rule and fit the model, then they should be allowed. But rezoning may not be the answer in this particular case, but if we could discuss what is our perception today of pawn shops? Does anybody agree or disagree with that? Because, first of all, anytime we have a list like this, it's very hard to navigate a list like this. A multiple choice is hard to deal with. So, in the absence of saying, item 1, how does everybody feel? Item 2, I guess, what's the perception of the council as to pawn shops? Ms. Wallman?
Okay, I admit it. I'm a reality TV junkie. I watch reality TV. It's the only thing I can do where my head clears, and I don't have to worry. I have to worry about everybody and nobody else's problems except just watching some of the silly stuff on television. But I think that you run a really reputable company. You have a clean facility. It's not something that, and I don't think anything's going to change except that people would just have an opportunity to come in, and instead of selling their stuff, when he has a chance to speak, I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're doing now is they have to go in and they have to take a payment for whatever they need money for. And let's face it, times are tough. People are getting laid off every day, and a lot of times you have to do something like that. So the difference I see is that this just gives the people a chance to redeem their property back. Now, that may be too simple, but that's how I see it. as far as controlling it, I think you have to rely on your elected officials, because if I understand, Joe, anybody else who would come and want to do this, they have to come before the council and then have to get approval, correct?
No, once you put the pawn shop, once you allow the pawn shop use, they'll be allowed to do a pawn shop there. If somebody wanted to change the covenant and add another B3
There,
use,
but I'm talking about other people.
yeah, if you accept the covenants, the pawn shop is allowed at this location only. If somebody wanted to come in and do another zoning change, they would have to make the request to the council.
They would have to make a request at the council. Okay, is generally understanding completely here? Okay, so in other words, if I wanted to open a pawn shop a block from him, I can't just go in there and do that. I'd have to come to you and then go to council.
Correct. If you wanted to open a pawn shop in the B1 zone,
exactly,
you would have to come to council to change the zoning or have the use inserted
Right.
into the B1. You can
Right.
open a pawn shop in any of the B3 zones
Right,
already,
understood.
and
Okay.
that's not an issue.
Okay, and so again, that's the point I'm trying to make. I mean, it's not like these people are just knocking on our door and saying, "Hi, I'm James Smith," or whatever, "I want to open a pawn shop." They've been in business, I don't really know how many years, but I know they've been in business 35 years. Okay, that answered that one. But they've been in business for a long time, and I personally would like to see people have a chance to get their things back. I mean, you asked me how I perceived it, and that's how I perceive it. Instead of them having to sell it outright, I like the idea of them getting to get it back, and I think you have military discounts and things like that as well. So I just think you have to rely on your council, the people that you elect into office, to keep everything under control, and that's my opinion.
One of the things just to add into the discussion, and I think from a historical perspective, there was a lot of theft, and the theft products ended up in these pawn shops. I mean, we just had a situation where the materials that were stolen from the Old City Hall were caught at a pawn shop. So I think if from a historical perspective, I believe that's where that it was written into the B3. So I agree with what you're saying, and I think from a historical place, I think that's what why it was there. So, but anything else from council members? Ms. Faircloth and then Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as my perspective, as when it comes to pawning, I would not like to see pawn shops proliferated throughout the city, by no means, because not all of the clients that they cater to. However, this is a very reputable businessman in our community that has been operating for some time. So in light of that, I am in favor of coming up with alternatives with my colleagues in order for this operator to expand the offerings to his customers, because again, we have to be friendly to businesses in this community in order to court them. So I look forward to work with my colleagues to assist this business owner.
Thank you, Mayor. And I kind of what you had just mentioned. Obviously, if we look back at 70s, 80s, the pawn shops had such a bad notion because there was no way of tracking, what was stolen goods, and I think that was the main concern and why it was looked upon in those times. I think today, because of technology, because they have more regulation, I think that it makes the process easier. We're making sure that we're not bringing in, or doing our best to make sure we don't have stolen property. I visit pawn shops all the time. I love them because I think there's always great deals to be found there. That just unfortunately someone didn't want a set of golf clubs, fishing rods, and those type of deals that are there. And obviously, again, you have honest, good people that have products that, or else you're going to try to sell a historic something of some value, like a memorabilia of a baseball bat or a baseball. You can sell it in a pawn shop, and they could get some good money for it, and then in turn, that's available for the consumer. And so I in favor again, with this business owner, because again, they're here in a community, they're doing business, and we know that they've done reputable business. So I think if we go at it from the options there, I could support it. So that's all.
Joe, question. For the purposes of the best way to give this applicant the opportunity to become a pawn shop, and yet at the same time protect the proliferation of pawn shops all over the city unchecked or reasonably unchecked, the best option is to take the zoning with the covenant. That way it only pertains to this, despite the fact that it's against the spot zoning question, but listening to the conversation, that's the best way to protect all of the other zones of the B1s, B2s, B3s, and still give this applicant the opportunity to do business, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I think I've allowed all of my colleagues to speak before I speak now again. Question to Joe. Well, first of all, this location is off of US 1, right?
Yes, sir.
US 1 and 4th Street,
Yes, sir.
not
Well,
on Camp, which?
no, it's on US 1 and
US 1 and
Maori.
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 So I heard a couple of things. One was the traffic for Washington, but this is the location off of US 1. How many other B3s do we have within the proximity of this location, of any other businesses?
We don't have any B3s on US 1. It's completely surrounded by B1 uses.
Surrounded by, so restaurants will be considered what?
A restaurant would be
Considered what?
restaurant would B1.
Will be one. Okay. The second question is that, or comment, could you go back over the options
Yes,
that's
sir.
available?
The first option would be just to rezone it to B3.
Okay, we don't want that, I don't think.
The second option would be to rezone it to B3, but accept the covenant which restricted the B3 use to the one use, which is pawning. So all of the entire list of B3s would not be allowed except for pawning. The third option would be to keep it at B1, but take the pawn use from B3 and insert it into B1.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that either.
Okay, and so
So option 2?
option 2 would be to rezone it to B3 and accept the applicant's covenant, which would be to only utilize the pawn use out of the B3 district.
So in order for, any other options? Those are only,
Well, you could amend the code to, you could amend the B1 to allow pawning and call pawning a special exception, or you could amend the code to B1 to allow pawning and have some more specific standards on it, like distance requirements between.
okay, so what will meet the threshold that would be fair to, is there an option to keep it as B1 and do a special, I guess, covenant, which we've said, for pawning, or do we have to change it to a B3?
Well, I think what we've discussed here is that if you changed it to the B3 and only allowed the B3 use of pawning at that location, that's allowing the applicant to do what the applicant needs to do to run their business, and it doesn't allow the pawn use to spread into other places
It's
where you may not
controllable.
want it.
Right.
You've got it very controlled, and you can then evaluate every other request individually in the future.
Now, if they sold it, the business, they sold it would the, and I think one of my colleagues already asked this question, would the restrictions then be lifted? Or is it based on the proprietor of that,
No,
or is it on the land or the building itself?
It goes with the land. So the restriction that you could only use the B3 use of pawning would stay there until removed by the council.
Oh, until it's removed by us.
It's 30 years and then several it's in perpetuity.
Perpetuity.
But it needs to be removed by the council.
Okay, all right. Okay, and the letter covenant that they have submitted to you deals with which option?
The covenant deals with the option that we had just discussed, which would be
Changing it
changing
to
to
three.
B3 and allowing the pawn use as the only use out of the B3
Okay.
zone.
Okay, I will be in favor of supporting that. Okay, sure. I yield to my colleague.
Ms. Faircloth, and then I'm going to get the applicant to come up. Okay, go right ahead.
Clarification question. If we rezone to B3, although they will have that restrictive covenant, does that allow other surrounding businesses to implement other B3 uses in the area?
No,
No.
only for this property.
Only for this property? Okay, thank you.
Can you come forward and appreciate you being patient with us while we ask a lot of questions, but go right ahead, sir.
The first issue I wanted to address was the Councilman Burgess. I completely agree with you. I don't think anybody should act outside of the law. You know, if the rules are the rules, and they're there for a reason. And my understanding, and if I don't know if there's anybody here that could correct me if I'm wrong, but when we had the code violations that came out, code did come out. They weren't addressing that the pole sign was illegal. They were addressing that the wording was moving too fast. They said that because we had our wording on a 5-second time delay, so every 5 seconds it would move. They said that it had to be 30 seconds before the screen could change. Also, too, that it was multiple colors. It was red and blue, and they said that you need to have a solid color, that you can't have multiple colors flashing, that it might distract the drivers, and they could lose control of the vehicle. So we changed that too. So under my understanding, we had no open violations at all against it. I don't think we have anything on where we haven't paid any unpaid fines or anything like that. The pole sign had been there from when Chuck Wagon was there. So the pole sign was grandfathered in when code came out, is what they told us. So that was my understanding on that issue. As far as to get into the question of what will change if we do get the license, and just as Ms. Waldman said, basically nothing. The only difference will be that the same people who came in to sell their items could walk back through the door again and pick them up. They would pay a finance charge, and that's it. There would be no accentuating things to where it would cause trouble against the community or anything like that. There would be absolutely no difference between what I do now and what I would be doing, except that the people can come back in and that they can pick their items up. Also, to elaborate on what Ms. Waldman said, now is a hard time for a lot of people. You can't go to the bank and get a payday loan for $50 from the bank. If you ask them for a $50 loan, they'll laugh at you. I don't want to name the person, but I have a guy whose son swims for Keysgate. He's a swimmer, and they just had a meet where he had to go up to Orlando for a swim meet. Well, he wasn't able to pay for his son's swim meet, so he had to come in and pawn his barbecue grill so that his son could go to that meeting, to go to that swim meet. He won first place in all 3 categories. If it wasn't for him being able to come in and pawn that grill to get the money to send his son to a meet, the son wouldn't have been able to go. So I think that speaks volumes into what this business actually does. This isn't somewhere where people had said, they bring stolen stuff. I'm highly regulated by the county. Every time I buy something from someone, I get their picture ID. They have to have a valid state ID, government issue. They sign the paperwork. They thumbprint the paperwork. I get their name, their address, their phone number. I would literally be the worst place in the world for someone to bring something that's stolen. And every night, my records are electronically sent to Miami-Dade County Police Department. Like you said that stuff had gotten stolen from the city council. Think if places like this, theft is going to happen. That's non-preventable. If they hadn't have brought it to a pawn shop, let's say they would have sold it to somebody on the street, there would have been no track at all. You wouldn't have caught the person. You would have gotten your items back. There would have been no repercussions on the criminal at all. So, like I said, you can't stop criminals, but at least this adds some sort of safe proof that if they did come into the shop, that there is something that can be done also. We're not a haven for them. So if there's any other questions too, I'd like to address them.
Okay, well, first of all, I need to go back and open up the public hearing. We've had a lot of discussion. This is open to the public. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this application, you're more than welcome to speak. At this time, do any council members have any questions for the applicant that we haven't already discussed? Now, I'm sorry.
Make a motion if you...
Well, let's just reiterate. If the intent of the council is to help this applicant and not have a proliferation of pawn shops throughout the entire city, the best option available is zoning to B3 with the covenant, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Everybody understand the motion? Any public comments? Okay, so I'll close the public comment. I'm sorry. This is the first reading, correct, Joe?
Yes. Yes, sir.
First reading, so we'll be back again. Okay, so there is a motion and a second. Any final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess?
No.
Councilman Maldonado?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
No.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tab 9.
Yes, tab 9 is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, considering a request for a fence variance from Section 30-396.62, Southwest Plan Urban Neighborhood Industrial Subarea Fences of the City Code of Ordinances for C&R Milling and Paving, Inc., located at 194 Southwest 2nd Street, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Staff, is this like Groundhog Day that we just do this?
Very similar.
Very similar.
Very
okay.
similar to Groundhog.
So, staff report?
Similar but different. So in this case, we are similarly recommending denial of the variance. Here the applicant is requesting the variance to the code because a chain link fence isn't permitted in the southwest neighborhood. What's different between this one and the one we heard last month was the applicant had come in a while back and asked if they could put up a temporary chain link fence because the property was vacant and they didn't want trash being thrown in there. So we allowed the temporary chain link fence with the agreement that at the time the property got developed, they would conform to the code. And so we allowed it, we knew we allowed it, and we had a reason for doing that, and when we got to the point where we're going to develop, we're going to go back and adhere to the code. So the applicant has decided that at this time they want to seek the variance, and so they're here doing that. And this passed 4-0 through the Planning and Zoning Board, so that's the scoop.
Vice Mayor, question?
Yeah, my question is, I see the staff report. I have two concerns here, and one of them, the first one is probably the smaller concern, and that is that they were given a temporary, I guess, the ability to put up this temporary fence, but it was required that they were supposed to have some sort of landscape buffer, but they didn't ever put that in there. How long ago? How long did they have to do that? Was that a year ago, 6 months ago?
I believe we did that in 2000, about a year and a half, so 2012 it was. So.
Okay, so that's one concern I have a little bit, is that they didn't comply with the restrictions that were put on the first time with essentially a variance. But the biggest one I have a concern of, and that is that they didn't provide the letter of intent. So they haven't provided you essentially their argument in favor of why we should grant them the variance. That's my biggest concern. They haven't really followed the protocol or procedure. As far as the underlying issue of the fence, I don't know that I necessarily have an issue with that, because it's not much different than a wrought iron fence with landscaping. But my biggest concern is that you still haven't received any type of letter of intent outlining what their argument is in favor, why we should grant it, giving us the argument that we could maybe help them with. Essentially, we have nothing to work with. Is that correct?
That's correct. The protocol dictates that the applicant submits an application, and the critical part of the application, from the applicant's point of view, is being able to establish that they need a variance and they have a hardship. Sometimes the applicants choose not to put their evidence on the table as to why they need a variance, and this is one of those cases. So we've evaluated, as we always do in every case. We see no hardship. They've presented no evidence of a hardship, so really we don't have any choice but to deny it based on the evidence that's in front of us.
Okay. Yeah, that's just my concern. I don't like to, at least follow the rules. Just give us something, some sort of argument, so that we can then do the analysis and follow without just giving something without it. But And the underlying issue with the fence, you know, as long as it's landscape buffered correctly, we just kind of went through this last council meeting. You know, I think it's something we need to look at as the Southwest Master Code in general, because it seems like we just keep changing and changing and changing and not ever following it. So in that sense, I don't necessarily have an issue with chain link versus wrought iron as long as a proper landscape buffer. But my biggest concern was just the fact that we don't really have, the rules haven't been followed, and it just makes it problem precedent-wise. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. It's open to the public. Any questions, any discussion for or against? Mr. Bass, welcome.
Hey, Council, Mayor. Jason Bass, 2927 Augusta Circle, representing CNR Milling and Paving. Just to address a comment from Mr. Cordino, we were not, well, we're the applicant today, but we did not apply for the fence that was, the prior owner had made that application for that fence. He had owned the adjacent property that y'all were dealing with, I think, last month, Mr. De Benedito. He was the applicant for that temporary fence. And when Renee, the owner of CNR Milling and Paving, had purchased that property, he was under the impression that it was a permanent fence because the permit for the property adjacent to it did have a permanent fence permit. That was the only difference between these two permits. And to address Mr. Shelley, we were not the owners of the property until recently. So that landscaping buffer that was supposed to be put in there, technically, I think that timeline ran out when the prior owner owned the property. So I think that probably would have been his responsibility. Now that we are the owners of the property, we are taking the responsibility to put that landscape buffer in, and that was I think something that was in the application there. One of the requirements, I guess, as it was prior with the temporary fence.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Ms. Wellman?
No question, but if there's no other questions, then I'm willing to make a motion.
Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this request with the contingency of the landscaping buffer.
Is there a second? A second? Second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion from council? So the motion is to approve with the requirement that the landscape buffer is put in place. And Joe, is that okay? You got that? Okay. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk. Oh, I forgot to close the public hearing. Apologize. Public hearing is closed. Having no conversation. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Legislative matters, Mr. Attorney?
An ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budget for the city for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014, by increasing the total budget revenue and expenditures by $5 million, providing for a repealer, severability, and an effective date. This is the second reading and public hearing.
Anything from staff? Anything new? This is for the Seminole Theater.
Nothing new.
Okay, any questions from council? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. This is the budget amendment for the $5 million for the renovation of the Seminole Theater. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess? Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Tab 11.
Budget amendment for the police project. An ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budget for the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014, by increasing the total budget revenue and expenditures by $17 million, providing for a repealer, severability, and an effective date. This is the second reading and public hearing.
Second reading, staff report. Anything different, Mr. Manager?
Nothing different, Mayor.
Question, sir.
Question?
Yes.
Sorry, Councilman Burgess.
The bond issue was for $21 million, correct? 17 plus 3 equals 20. Where's the other million?
There was $4 million done as an earlier amendment. If you look at the attachment on the exhibit, you'll see when that was
I
done
read
earlier in the
through
year.
there. I didn't see your attachment. Can you tell me what page that is?
Should be the third page, your exhibit 1.
Down at the bottom,
You'll see
other
the-
funds.
Under column that says no 5, you'll see the $4 million.
I trust you. I'm looking.
Across the top where it says note 1, note 2, note 3, note 4, note 5, across the top.
Gotcha. Okay,
Then
yeah.
go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the $4 million.
Okay. I just got new glasses. I was reading that. But where does the other $1 million go? 3 is over there and 17 is there.
17 is right next to it. 4 and the 17.
We held them at 3 million out there at the state. You're saying 17 million for the new police building.
Right,
And
we
the
had
$1
done
million
the
would be for the architecture? Or?
all the soft costs that we were needed to prepare for.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Burgess?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just making sure because I knew 17 and 3 didn't make 21, but I didn't find it, and I never did well in accounting.
Any other questions for council? This is a public hearing, allocations in the budget for the police station.
I can't.
Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Moved.
Second.
And moving and second. Any final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Fairclough? Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 12.
Budget amendment, $25.6 million for new city hall. Ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budget for the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2013, ending September 30th, 2014, by increasing the total budgeted revenue and expenditures by $25,600,000, providing for a repeal or severability and an effective date. Second reading and public hearing.
Anything from staff? Mr. Manager?
Nothing new, Mayor.
Any questions from council? No questions. This is a public hearing, budget amendment to allow the adjustment for the $25 million for the City Hall project.
Move it.
Close the public hearing. Motion by Ms. Waldman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Any final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess? Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 13.
Car 1186, construction of new city hall project.
Mr. Manager?
Mayor, I guess the question is, did you want the winning bidder to give a presentation, or it's pretty much the same presentation as last time, so it's really up to you.
Any opposition to just going forward, or do you want to see the presentation?
Mayor, my apologies. At our committee of the whole meeting, I was not here. I was serving as a juror, so I was not able to be a part of their presentation. I have some questions, so if perhaps they can give an abbreviated version to hit on some highlights of their proposed project, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you gentlemen would step to the microphone and give us a little abbreviated version so that we can, Ms. Fairclough can be comfortable with the process.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, City Manager's Office, residents, thank you for the opportunity to again express our presentation to the city and to give a little insight as to MCM and who we are, as opposed to the package that was submitted to you all as part of this big proposal. I will try to abbreviate it as much as possible, and please feel free to interject and ask questions at any time. With that, I will start with the MCM mission statement. It's very, very key to note that there's 3 things here that are paramount to us. Delivering total client satisfaction is one, and never compromising quality or safety in that process. And that's a guarantee that we have on every single one of our projects. A little bit about MCM and its history. The foundation of the company was founded in Cuba by Fernando Munilla Sr. In the late 40s and 50s. Once exiled from Cuba when Castro came in, family was split up. The 4 oldest brothers were shipped to an orphanage in Ohio with a note on their shirt saying, please keep my children together. Eventually the mother, Maria, left with brothers number 5 and 6, and eventually the father came to the United States. The only thing he was able to bring besides his family was the shirt off his back and an engineering certificate which he had achieved in Cuba. So the family started all over again in essence. Fast forward many, many years, and the father instilled a great family pride, and the brothers have remained very close and together for many years. This year we're celebrating our 30th year as MCM, founded here in South Florida. We've been a builder here in Homestead as well too. We've built a wastewater treatment plant. We built Redondo Elementary. We had a migrant worker camp that we built many years ago, and along with that, many other projects in the South Florida area. The ownership of MCM is very involved in every single one of our projects. Yes, ma'am.
Let me just help you out a little bit. We can skip the history. I've read the entire packet. I read your background, impressive work you're doing. Can we go straight to the scope of the work? I think that would be helpful. The proposed project.
What do we do without a quorum?
Oh, wait. I didn't realize that.
Somebody go get one of them back. Get somebody back, please. Steve, we lost quorum, Steve. Okay, go ahead, sir. Or, I'm sorry, Ms. Faircloth, you were asking a question.
Yeah, let's just get to the proposed, what you're proposing for the project, the history, the background. Let's fast forward that part.
Okay, perfect. We're going to be, hopefully, upon your vote tonight, we're going to be building your new city hall. We've participated in this bid process for you all on all 3 times that this project was let. As you may know, it bid back in, I believe it was 2009. MCM was one of the bidders. We bid also as well last time, and of course this previous time. So we're intimately familiar with the project and all the requirements. The scope is very detailed. I got Willie Ogarta here, who's a project manager, who can talk a little bit about maybe some logistics and things of that nature. We also have the architect here, who is definitely extremely well-versed because he's been living this project for many, many years, Mr. Rodriguez, and he can definitely get into the scope of work if necessary. And we've also worked with Rodriguez Quiroga on previous projects. One of them is at the airport, another one we're currently building right now, United Home Care.
Question. Link Construction, what role will they play? Are they the lead subcontractor on this project?
No, ma'am, not at all. Link Construction was a competitor. They were the second bidder in the process.
Follow-up question. All of your subcontractors, and I apologize if my questions were asked and answered already. Is it a fair statement to say that all of your subcontractors, they are outside of the city of Homestead? I saw Naples, Pompano Beach, Maitland, all these different places. All of your subcontractors are outside of the city.
The ones that are listed, yes, correct.
My concern was this is a over 25 million project. So how can we ensure that our local residents and our local businesses are privy to some of this money? And I scoured through the document and I saw on page 400 of our packet that there was one paragraph carved in stating that you would work with the South Florida workforce to recruit some locals to be a part of this project. I'm not necessarily convinced that our locals will be a part of this $25 million project.
Well, if you allow me, I will try. Just so you know, in the previous meeting, I stated that we are going to self-perform the show work on this project, and that's important because our general superintendent, his name is John Jackson. He's a long-term resident of the city of Homestead, and with that, there is at a minimum, he tells me, currently 20 to 25 employees that actually reside in the city of Homestead. And with that, I also stated last week to Commissioner Williams that any employees, any new hires that we would need to hire for this project to build the shell work portion, that we would gladly look to the City of Homestead first and foremost. And that's a guarantee. In addition to that, outside of the contract, even though it's not required, I also stated that I will produce a report that will also show you what are our efforts trying to do so as well. I will also state that as a subcontractor, we didn't list a civil subcontractor because we went into the bid thinking that we would probably self-perform the civil work. I will let you know that we are currently looking at 2 local City of Homestead subcontractors to perform that work. Nothing's been nothing's been given out, but we are diligently working towards that.
Mr. the Mayor, I did see Rutland, the Rutland Company. I did see the Rutland Company, a part of the subcontractor list in here. So that's a good thing because they're local. And you mentioned that when it comes to new hires, you're going to look to Homestead.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean? How does that look?
Well, when I say look to Homestead, is we will make the effort to hire residents of City of Homestead first and foremost for any of the workforce that we need.
I just want to ensure, I think it would be disrespectful of us if we didn't advocate for our community and our local residents and businesses to be a part of this. So I would hope if this is approved tonight, that you would make more than an effort, but make it happen to ensure that some of our residents do in fact take part in this and to help increase the economic viability of our local residents and businesses in the community.
That's not just an effort, ma'am. That would be a promise from us, no doubt about it.
Mayor?
Were you finished, Ms.? Okay. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, let me address my colleague, because the exact same questions that you asked just a few moments ago are the exact same questions and problems and concerns I had with last week. And I don't think the Rutland Company is with, I think they bid with Links, not with this organization.
That's correct. However, we are speaking with Pinky Muntz and his team to give us a look and a price for the project.
Yeah. So, just to reiterate what my colleague has said, that I said last week, was of the same measure, and going forward, with these kind of projects, to me it's very imperative that, and I know that we only had 2 bids to come in, or 3 bids, or however many bids to come in, because we threw out some constraints that we had in there before. But on this particular project is very, very much dear. So I say that to say this, that as you have reassured Councilwoman McCormick that you would use the necessary tools in your company to make sure that locals are being given an opportunity to take some of the pie as well. So I'm okay with that, and I'll reserve the rest of my comments for later.
Any other questions from council? None? Okay, so Ms. Freckle, if you're okay with what was discussed at this particular point in time? So this is a public hearing. Did I open the public hearing? I forgot where I was. Okay, I'm opening up the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this, you're welcome to come to the microphone at this time. If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council at this particular point? Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we move forward with MCM LLC for the new construction of our City Hall sign.
Is there a
Our
second?
City Hall building, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fairclough. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry.
Question.
Mr.
Williams?
This is dealing with the motion. From this, and it's by procedure and process now. Once we vote on this, is there any renegotiation from the manager's aspect on certain things?
Mr. Manager?
No. No. So this is it.
This is it, and the only thing that'll come back to you would be at the next CAL, there'll be a special call meeting to select to solidify to approve the line of credit.
Oh.
And after that, it'll be a couple of days of processing and then a notice to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manager, if there's a willingness to do something in future bids, it would be at the process at our level first, as opposed to this level at the end. So as we go forward with projects, we need to discuss that in the debate process about what requirements for local preference, or not local preference, but local hiring. So
yes,
as we go forward, so. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman Williams? Councilman Williams?
Yeah, I'm thinking. No.
Councilwoman Fairclough?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Tab 14.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a request of the clerk? I keep not watching my watch, and under our rules, we're supposed to extend the meeting after 8:30. If I could ask maybe one of the clerks to sort of keep an eye on the time in this meeting and future meetings, so that we know when it's 8:30 and we can extend the meeting. So the manager happened to mention, say, look at your watch, and it's exactly 8:30, so you do need to extend the meeting.
Not to give you the impression I'm looking to get home or I'm in a hurry or anything. I just wanted to make sure.
Extend the meeting for 30 minutes.
Okay, motion for 30 minutes. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Where are we, tab 14?
Yes, and if you want, there's two relatively simple motions. One is the CAR 1174, construction of a new gravity main interceptor along 328th Street, and settlement of the Crystal River 3, the settlement agreement which we discussed at the CAL. Those two could be taken together.
Got anybody opposed to taking them together? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Attorney.
That's all. They're just motions, so you just need to move item 14 and 15, tab 14.
Is there a motion to move tab 14 and 15? Okay, now what about the public comment? What about the hearing process?
You'd ask if there's public comment on either of the items.
Okay. Anyone interested in speaking for or against tab 14 or 15? Close the public hearing. Comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess? Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 16.
A resolution in support of Miami-Dade County.
If I could, this was Councilwoman
I was going to say,
Fairclough.
let's hold off on that until she can get back.
Okay. CAR 1184, selection of bank for line of credit for finance of a portion of costs for the new City Hall. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting the proposal of Capital Bank to provide $10 million line of credit for financing a portion of the cost of the new City Hall, providing for the adoption of representations and an effective date.
Mr. Manager, staff report.
Carlos,
Anything?
you want to just
I'm sorry.
do a little nutshell version?
As you all know, as part of the financing for the City Hall, we needed to request a $10 million line of credit is what we're looking for to at least get us through to be able to, solidify the bid. What the final financing for this would probably be either a bank loan, or if we sold some assets or came across any other funds that would liquidate the debt. What the recommendation we have before you is from Capital Bank, and it basically provides the line of credit at very low interest rates and availability fees, but it also has a conversion into a fixed loan at a fixed, for 5 years, 2.55%. And what makes that one unusual compared to the other banks that submitted it, the other ones are based on formula and market-based. This bank is willing to commit now to that 2.55% in the long run. And since we believe that we won't be coming across those assets and that we will have to convert to a bank loan, if you look at over a three-year period, this is the best option of the bids that we received.
Okay. Questions from council? Public hearing. Anyone from the public? Close the public hearing. Final comments. Is there a motion? Move Ms. Waldman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Fairclough,
Yes?
Councilwoman Waldman,
Yes.
Councilman Burgess, Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Go back to tab 16, resolution.
Resolution in support of Miami-Dade County's full funding of the public library system. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, supporting the appropriate funding of the Miami-Dade County library system, providing for distribution of resolution, and providing for an effective date.
Ms. Fairclough?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for deferring this item. If we recall, last year, there was a large uproar and outcry in support of our librarians in our public library system, in addition to our firefighters. And the county commission and the mayor, they dipped into the reserve funds to assist with keeping the doors open to our public libraries. So what this is a proactive approach to reasonably appeal to our mayor and county commission to restore funding for our public libraries, because we don't want what happened a year ago to happen now. And there are several entities and municipalities that are on board with this and reaching out to county commissioners. South Miami, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Aventura, the League of Cities has also supported resolutions for this. So I think this is a great way to reach out to Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Moss, and Mayor Jimenez to let them know that the City of Homestead stands in solidarity with our librarians, our public library system, but more importantly, our kids, so that we would respectfully request and urge them to restore full funding to increase programming and restore operating hours for our public library system. So I'd be happy if my colleagues would support this resolution and move it forward to the Mayor and County Commission.
Well, thank you for bringing it forward. This is a public hearing. It's open to the public. No discussion from the public. I'll close the public hearing. Final comments from council?
Mayor,
Ms. Waldman?
I just want to thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing this to our attention, because as an avid library card holder, I mean, I use the library every week. My husband does too, and literally the librarians are crying out for help. And I fully support you. If I can help in any way, I will. If you need us to write letters or anything, just let us know. Let me know. But thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Okay, motion moved by Ms. Fairclough. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Waldman. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough,
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman, Councilman Burgess,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 18.
Selection of underwriters for general obligation bond issue. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving selection of Bank of America Merrill Lynch to serve as underwriter for the city's general obligation bonds, providing for the adoption of representations and an effective date.
Mr. Manager. Carlos.
Mayor and council, we've received several proposals for the underwriting of these bonds, and we felt that Bank of America Merrill Lynch provided the overall best for marketing of our bonds. They have the most experience as far as issuance of tax-exempt bonds, not only at a national, but in the state of Florida. Their marketing and distribution plan is excellent, and they also have a presence within the city of Homestead.
Thank you, sir. Questions from council?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Would you
Williams?
say you was moving very fast? What did you just say now?
That our recommendation is Bank of America Merrill Lynch. They basically have showed the most experience of the proposals that we received, the most experience both at a national level for the issuance of the tax-exempt bonds and also at the state level. They also have a local presence in the city of Homestead.
Right, yeah. This is, man, this deals with the bond issue, even though they're the underwriters, but this is not the last step of the bond. Is that not right? This is just a fraction of the whole process?
That is correct. This is only one phase. They will be the ones that will be marketing our bonds and putting it out there for the market.
Currently, what is our bond? Do we have a bond rating currently?
No, sir. The last bond rating was several years ago, so it's really.
Do you remember
non-existent.
what it was?
No, sir. I don't.
My other question is, and this may be for the city manager. Mr. Manager, you've had some experience in these bonds. What do you foresee perhaps the step to be to ensure that we get a good bond rating, to ensure that we have the best possible rating for these bonds? Could you just perhaps elaborate on what you have done in the past and perhaps what you may and what has worked to make sure that we get a great bond rating?
Sure. We have a slight difference of opinion between myself and the financial advisors in terms of the approach to the bond rating agencies. I'm more familiar with the approach of bringing city officials to the bond rating agencies in New York and putting on basically a united front to show that the city is stable and our finances are stable. The financial advisors feel that that could be accomplished just as well down here, and so in light of the difference of opinion, I just felt that we'll see how they do. I can tell you that when we did this up in Fort Lauderdale, the first time we did it, we got a pretty nasty headline in the paper because we went up to New York to do it. And then a month later, our bond rating was increased, and then there were no more bad stories. Of course, we didn't get a story that our bond rating was increased either.
Right.
We got the story about the trip. And then when we issued more bonds later, a couple of years later, we went back up to New York, and we ended up getting another bump in our rating, and we ended up with one notch below AAA for a city that, when I had arrived there, was teetering towards bankruptcy. So it was, we felt, the electeds felt as well, that by going up there, it makes a good impression. On the other hand, times have changed, and with the economy, people are a little more sensitive to the trips. And so, I'm not much of a traveler. I only travel when I feel the travel somehow is going to benefit the city, and many city managers go on their ICMA conferences and things that benefit their career, and typically I don't do that. In fact, I don't think I've ever done that since I've been here, but my feeling is that when you spend a little money to travel for something that will benefit the city, it's a good investment. But I also have faith in our financial advisors, and if they feel they can produce a good result cheaper, well, I'd say that's...
Well, thank you, George, for that, because I think that at the end of the day, this is our really first rodeo in skidding out these bonds beyond the early 19th century when they floated bonds then. And I think with your experience and your finesse in doing that, I'm in agreement that as our city administrator, that I don't see a problem with that happening. And my only issue or concern is that based on your experience, you've had the bond ratings, were fairly in good shape when you came back and whatever beyond the story. But at the end of the day, you accomplished your goal, which was to go and spread the city and to get the great bond rating. I don't see the difference of opinion. You don't have a difference of opinion for me. I think you should go to represent us to get the best rating that we can for these bonds, and it should not be looked upon as anything other than you doing your job.
Well, I appreciate that. Truthfully, I think unless we have some elected officials that are willing to go up there with us, the basic thing that I felt that made the difference with the bond rating agencies is at the time they were concerned that the city wasn't committed to fiscal responsibility, and so having elected officials kind of reinforce what we were showing them on paper, that this is serious, and we're going to be very prudent in the way we manage our finances. And in my opinion, that went a long way with the rating agencies. So it really is up to you. We can go, we can not go, and it's a judgment call.
One more question, Mayor, and I'm done with this bond issue here. Could you explain to us, George, the significance of a good bond rating?
Well, basically, the better your bond rating, the cheaper the better the rate is, in essence, the cheaper it is to borrow money. And so as you see your bond rating increase, it makes your cost of borrowing less. And it also is a good reflection on the city when your bond rating is higher. And
Right.
it makes people feel confident about the city and its finances. So that's really
Yeah.
pros and cons.
And I think in a time like these, we need more good picture of the city doing that. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Manager, somewhere I read in here where they market the bonds, and if the bonds don't sell, there was something about it comes back, or they buy the bonds. This Merrill Lynch would buy the bonds if they can't market them correctly, or they can't get a proper sale.
Yes, hi, good evening. Julie Santamaria with RBC Capital Markets, the city's financial advisor. And yes, that is one of the major roles of the underwriter, is when they're pricing the bonds, if there are certain amounts that are unsold, that they will take them down and purchase them for their inventory in order to have a successful bond sale. So having the sufficient capital to do so and the willingness to do so is very important.
Well, we don't even have a bond rating. We don't even know our bond rating.
Right.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Underwriting.
Typically, you don't go for your rating unless you're intending, well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The bond rating would be affirmed in advance or applied for and received in advance of the bond sale.
Okay, so I guess the question is, the question is, do we let somebody else go do it for us, or do we go do it ourselves? Is that it, Mr. Manager? Is that?
I think the basic issue is that the city needs to communicate with the bond rating agencies prior to them issuing a rating. And so either they come to us or we go to them, and sometimes it's handled by phone. So I think really the only difference is who goes where and what kind of involvement the manager and the city council have in at least promoting and explaining where we are economically as a city.
Okay, so
they see a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, right. They will ask the staff questions, but also getting a sense of elected officials and how optimistic they are about the city's health and where the city is going. In my opinion, that makes a difference. I think the financial advisors feel a little differently, but it's really just approach.
Right, but you're the manager, so the thing is, are we giving up our right or our option to go and make our best case by passing this tonight?
No, you'll need the underwriter anyway.
Okay.
It's just a function of when the city starts preparing its material and submitting it and communicating with the bond rating agencies. Do you go up there and put on the best show possible, or do you have them communicate with staff and potentially come down here?
Okay, so we're not giving up our option to go by doing it this way?
No, you're not. Although if there is interest in going and you're okay with the concept of going, then we'll just have to think back, we'll just have to retool what they're doing. But if you're okay with them trying down here, like I said, it's a cumbersome thing to do it, and I'll tell you the reason why. The Sunshine Law gets very tricky.
Right.
And so we had to have elected officials sitting in a lobby and going one after the other, and we had to be careful not to talk in the bus, and there's all kinds of things that make it complicated. And in my opinion, the complication and the cumbersome nature of it, it was worth it because we produced a good result. I can't guarantee you a good result, and I can't tell you that we can't produce a good result by not doing it that way. So it's just a function of, if you're interested in doing it and you want to do it, we can do it. If not, we can rely on the financial advisors to shepherd the thing through. But personally, I would do it. I did it twice already. But I also know you might get a bad newspaper story, and people may criticize you for going to New York, and it comes an issue of whether, do you want to play to win or you want to play to show? And it's a function of what's it worth in terms of potential criticism. And unless there's unity on that, I think we're probably better off trying it their way, because if there's going to be division on something like that, in the case of when I did it, the electeds saw the value of it and felt it was worth the criticism. And after they did it the first time and it produced a good result, then there was no discussion anymore because they saw for themselves. It also is a very educational experience in that you're going up to the bond rating agencies, you're really understanding and living the process of this, because we may end up doing more of this as we start dealing with the electric utility issue and the potential for doing major capital projects with them. And so there is value. How much value and whether it's justification enough, that really, I think, is more your call than mine. I've already decided that I think it is, but it's not valuable unless electeds go with us, in my opinion.
When would the potential trip need to take place?
Probably would have to be sometime in mid-July.
Mid-July. Okay, so what we need to do as a council is basically see if we could commit to a July trip, any of us commit to a July trip to New York to meet in front of a bond agency. You would need to know that tonight in order to change the...
No, Carlos, what would be our deadline to do this?
We don't have a specific date right now. We're still working on
So if they gave us
preliminary
an
official
answer,
statements.
if they
and
gave
stuff,
us an
so-
answer by the CAL, is that enough sufficient time, or is that too late?
Might be tight, but see if we can try to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. Really, it's just a function of how comfortable you feel with it. And the other thing I personally feel about the trip is that it also gives you an opportunity to look at other things while you're there in terms of some of the things we're doing with downtown revitalization, and we'd have an opportunity to see some downtown success stories and to see some architecture issues. And so I see it more as, just one particular thing, but also I recognize that anytime you travel, there's a potential for criticism, and I don't want to lay that in your lap, and then you're regretful afterwards that the public was unhappy with the trip.
Okay, so the question is, if we go forward tonight with this, and there's no problem of moving into a direction, individually they can talk to you and say, hey, I can go, hey, I can't go, then we can at least get...
This resolution has nothing to do with the travel, really.
Okay.
I mean, it's part of the process, but it doesn't require you to travel or prohibit you from traveling. That's really a separate decision, and I think it's coming up because it's sort of part of the process, but this resolution doesn't bind you either way.
Okay, so doesn't bind us. This is a public comment. Is there any comments from the public on this item as to the resolution? Close the public comment. Is there a motion?
I have one more question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burgess, go ahead.
Sir, before we make a motion.
Go right ahead.
Carlos, you're saying we have no bond rating at all right now, the city?
No, I did not say that. I don't know what the latest bond rating on the existing ones that we have.
I know
So
in the
that
past
is correct, that there's not a bond rating currently.
So they expire every 12 months? Is that how
No,
something
it's
like that works? Because
when
I know
the-
3 years ago we had one.
When the bonds are no longer outstanding, then there's no longer a rating.
Maybe a credit rating then? Because we,
The
bonded.
variable rate bonds that you have outstanding have a rating based on the credit of the letter of credit provider, which is SunTrust, but that doesn't address the city's rating.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I was a little confused because I was at a dinner at the League of Cities, and a gentleman was telling me that we had an outstanding bond rating.
I was there. Not at this time. The city is not rated.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wallman?
Are you working with Dick Montalbano?
He has retired several years ago.
That was our last supper. Okay, because we happened to be at the same meeting, and he was very happy with our bond rating. So who's taking over for him? You? Oh, I didn't even know that.
Okay.
We should get to know each other.
All right, we're getting close to our 30-minute cutoff again. So, is there a motion? On the agenda, no. Did you say a motion of no to? Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So, motion by Mr. Burgess. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Woolman?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes, with George going to New York.
Councilwoman Fairclough,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 19.
Construction Management Agreement for Gravity Main Interceptor Project. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting proposal and approving work authorization for construction management service associated with the construction of a new gravity main interceptor along 328th Street between the city and Hazen and Sawyer PC pursuant to a continuing contract awarded under RFQ 201307, providing for an effective date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we don't need a staff report. This is a public hearing. It's a construction project. How's that? No one here from the public, so I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess. Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough,
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
I'm sorry, I didn't write down the motion in second. Did you have it, Elizabeth? Thank you. Tab 20 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving alternate route F for Chrome Avenue truck traffic in collaboration with FDOT and MPO, providing for implementation and effective date.
Any questions from council? There's no presentation from FDOT? We can get them here, right? No.
No, thank
It's a public comment. I'll open up the public comment at this time. Close the public comment. Is there a motion?
Move it.
Move it. Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fairclough,
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman,
Yes.
Councilman Burgess, Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Report from the manager.
None, May, other than we look forward to meeting with each of you individually just to talk philosophically about the upcoming budget as the department heads continue to work on the budget and also thinking through some of your thoughts on priorities. And then we'll be back to you a second time once the department heads have firmed up their budgets. We're going through that process right now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney, anything?
Just like to request an executive session. As you all read in the paper, the Supreme Court did decide on the red light traffic cameras that citations issued prior to 2010 when the law changed were improper. What that really means in terms of refunds, what it means in terms of all of that is being analyzed. But like the case that we have is Lally, L-A-L-L-Y versus City of Homestead, American Traffic Solutions. And I'd like to request an executive session in case we need it.
Thank you. Reports from Mayor and Council. Ms. Woolman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to keep this really brief because we're running out of time. I had a whole stack of stuff, but I'm just going to say 4th of July, I'm working on it with our Parks and Recs and our City Manager's office, our Police Department. It's going to be fantastic. We're expecting anywhere and probably about 17,000 people watching the fireworks from the Speedway grandstands, and then we're planning, as I always do, a VIP party upstairs. It's open to anybody that wants to come. The tickets are $20 for adults, ages 7 to 12, $10, and 6 and under free. I have just the greatest program honoring our veterans. I met with General Mulholland yesterday, and it's going to be just fantastic. Josh is working with me, Josh Padgett. I can't tell you enough. So if you want to come, it's going to be great food. It starts at 6 o'clock, the VIP party. The gates will open, I think, at 5 o'clock for the general public. We'll have 2 bands outside. I have entertainment upstairs as well. So get your tickets. Parks and Recs Department, cash only, right, Pedro? Cash only. So, and they're going to sell out. They're going to sell out. I have 750 tickets printed. That's it. Okay, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Burgess.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Brea, we've spoken with the Public Works Department at the county several months ago, and they assured us that some projects would be done down here on some lightage, and it's not done. So can you follow up with them and see what the holdup is at 328-137, at 312 and 137, and then also make sure that they're still moving along as quickly as they can with Pacific and 152, because that is going to be vital to a smooth opening when traffic picks back up again this fall. So we need to make sure we stay on them. I know Dr. Chen was very receptive the last time we spoke with her down there, but for whatever reason things seem to have come to a stall. So if we could reach back out to her and ask them to please expedite whatever they can for us, I'd appreciate it.
We'll do, and we'll bring a report back to the council.
Thank you. To the manager and the chief who has stepped out for a minute, and my colleagues, I asked them the other day, as you guys know, I like to, and let me thank Pedro and his staff also, because the boxes that we voted on to clean up have all been cleaned up around town. So they've done that, and I want to thank Chief and Code Compliance for that also. The other thing I asked them to start doing was to please work with our businesses on Washington Avenue and where the new police station is going to be, because we've got 18 months to try to educate as what's allowed and what's not allowed as far as signage and cleaning the area up and trying to make it nice. As we put almost a $26 million building down there, I think the neighborhood needs to reflect it and everybody take pride in it. So we're getting together and working with Code Compliance and going out and having speaking with the businesses and the neighbors around there as we try to move them along slowly, not to put any financial burden, on them. So if somebody comes to you and says, they're after me, we're not after them. We're trying to educate them and move things along so that we can clean that whole area up down there and start our revitalization, because that's going to be a key to it, is having a surrounding area that goes with the new building. So we're reaching out to both the people in the area of the new police station and Washington Avenue. And if any other ideas you have to help us move that along, I think the more time we give the vendors and the landlords and the shop people down there, the better off everybody's going to be. So if somebody comes to you, we're not trying to harass them or put them out of in some kind of financial harm by asking them to do certain things. We're just trying to clean the area up and getting that whole project moving as we move forward. So I just want to let you guys know about that. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Mr. Williams? Ms. Fairclough?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Two things, very briefly. City Manager.
Mayor, it's 9 o'clock.
Is there a motion to extend for 30 more minutes?
But it's time, could you just tell the mayor directly?
5 minutes? 15 minutes? 15 minutes or a motion? Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead, sir. Ma'am.
Okay. Mr. City Manager and Mr. Brea, there has been a request to have trolleys to stop at some of our local high schools to provide transportation for kids in the community to matriculate to these high schools, Homestead Senior High, and the new Cambridge program at Campbell Drive Middle, which is being repurposed to a high school. I don't know if you've had conversations about that, but if we can come up with some type of logistics and dollars to see what we can do to support that.
We'll take a look at it.
Can we have a timeline as far as how long it's going to take for you to get back to us about that?
Well, we just need to look at our routes and see if these locations are comparable to where we're going already. And it's going to require a study for us to be able to figure out exactly what we might need. Already our routes are very long. They take sometimes close to an hour to make a whole loop. As we start adding more and more stops, it just makes it that much less efficient. So we got to do a study to figure out exactly what might be needed, where an extra trolley might be needed to enable to keep adding all these locations. So it's a little more time consuming than I couldn't tell you right now exactly how long it's going to take, because if they're like right next door, right next to our route, then it makes it a lot easier, but if they're further away, then it requires some additional studies.
Who would do the study, Julio?
We would have to hire a consulting firm to do that for us.
So as long as you're all comfortable with us moving forward with that, we'll start that right away. You okay with that?
Is there any intent to get any additional buses?
I don't think there's an intent to do anything until we find out, where we're at and what's practical, but he'd need to look at it, and we want to make sure before we do the study that we have comfort level here for us to go forward. What do you think the study is going to cost?
I would say roughly around $20,000 or so, plus or minus.
So I can do that under manager's procurement. Just want to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Any council member opposed to the manager spending $20,000?
I have a quick question.
Can I get Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess?
I just, to Julio, I thought at one time when we were putting these online that minors weren't supposed to be unaccompanied riding on the shuttles or something to that effect.
We'll have to look at that as well to see, that'll be part of the study to see exactly what we can do in terms, usually we don't stop at schools per se, we stop at a street. If somebody gets on or off, there's...
I thought that question had come up one other time and there was something about, so, I don't...
I can't, I have to take a look at it. I have to take a look at it, but we'll keep that in mind when we look into it.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and then it's coming back to you. Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The other question too is the $20,000 for the study. I mean, is it a one-time? If you pay $20,000 for the study, is it only for that issue, or if we're going to be studying that issue, are there other issues we should also be studying at the same time to get the biggest bang for our buck, or how would that work? That's the only other question I have.
Well, what I need to do, and that's a great question. What I need to do is get with some consultants to see exactly what kind of tasks they're envisioning would need to be done in order to, first of all, look at this one issue, but also, like you're stating, maybe look at it more in a holistic fashion, see if the routes that we have now are actually efficient. There might be ways to make them run faster, et cetera, right turns instead of left turns, those type of things usually reduce the amount of time. So it's a traffic engineering analysis that has to be performed.
Okay, that was my question, because, I mean, we kind of willy-nilly put this route together over the last couple of years. So if we're going to have an expert come in and a consultant come in and look at it, let's see what we can and maximize the use of the funds to do what we can with this route.
One other thing, if you're comfortable with us moving forward, it just sounds like it does. You do, because I didn't hear any objections, Mayor. Okay, if we're going to go forward and anybody else has ideas of where they also want stops, it would be better to incorporate that as well into the study. So first, need to decide whether you want to do it, and second thing is I would recommend that you include anything else that you want in there.
Okay. Ms. Wallman, we'll go back to you.
Mayor Porter, you were on council when we first started talking about these trolleys, when Mayor Warren was our mayor. And we need to find this out, but at the time, they had told us that if we pick up a child from a campus, from a school campus, then we take responsibility for that. And that's why we have streets, it's like street corners or whatever, street stops. So before we spend $20,000, I think that's a simple question that we could call the school board and ask them if we can, because they had told us back then that somebody would have to be on the bus to take responsibility for these minors. So I think it's a great idea, but I want to make sure before because to me $20,000 is a lot of money, that's even feasible. And I agree with Vice Mayor Shelley that if we're going to do it, then we need to sit down and come up with a list of things that we would like looked into. I know the first thing they're going to tell us is that we need more trolleys, and do we have money to buy more trolleys, or are there grants available for that? So I have some questions. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea, but I just think that we need to know what our liabilities are and if it's even feasible. So I don't know if we're willing to let them do a little research and come back to us.
Ms. Faircloth, would you be opposed to that one singular question being answered for you quickly as to the liability and the responsibility we pick up with children? Is that okay with you to get that?
I just have another question.
You have the floor.
First off, they're high school students, so if they can get on a public bus, I don't see why they can't get on a trolley. And two, this wouldn't be the first municipality that does this. And if I can ask Mr. Corradino, I believe Pinecrest, the village of Pinecrest, does this for all of your public schools in the village of Pinecrest.
Yes, ma'am, all the schools, and Doral does it as well.
Right, so this...
Then maybe it's changed.
Yeah. So this wouldn't be new. It's currently been done in other municipalities.
Okay, any opposition to doing a study and incorporating the vice mayor's request to do a broader study and make sure we get our bang for our buck? Any opposition?
No opposition.
None, Mr. Manager? Ms. Fairclough, you still have it?
Yes, one more. I just would like to congratulate Ms. Raquel Bueno. She's our National Migrant Teacher of the Year, and she teaches at Homestead Senior High School. So I look forward to recognizing her next month at our council meeting and have her share a little bit about her story and her journey to becoming National Migrant Teacher of the Year right here in our city. So I'm really excited about that. I have nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just two quick items. First is we just voted on the Chrome Avenue Truck Bypass Preferred Alternative. There will be a town hall meeting on June 26th, which is next Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. at the community center right here. To discuss that, it'll be a public workshop. That was just discussed at the last council meeting. This is part of that process. We've now approved the resolution. This will be the city putting on a workshop for the community, for our residents, for our citizens to come in and look at and weigh in on, learn about the process, make any comments. FDOT will be there to give the presentation as well. And then from that presentation, FDOT will do their own sometime in September, and that'll be the final step in the process. So I just wanted to make sure that was announced that next Thursday here in the community center, June 26th from 6 to 8 p.m., there will be a Chrome Avenue Truck Bypass workshop being held. And then just to extend on something Councilman Burgess said, and that is while you guys are working on the code and cleanup of Washington and the downtown area, I think it'd also be good to maybe go ahead and extend that concept up Chrome Avenue, because again, that whole corridor is going to be a shining star hopefully here fairly soon. So the sooner we can start maybe working on putting those groundwork in place, not an immediate overnight effect, but making sure that we're making slow progress forward. So I'd say, at least 15th Street South, all those residents, or not residents, but those businesses, the strip shopping centers, all of that would be nice to maybe bring back into conformity. So just as an observation. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Burgess, you want to follow up?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I think if anybody's been up Old Cutler from 216 up to 87, you can see what they took, and Mr. Corradino was involved with this, they took almost 1.5 years to 2 years to get those businesses to conform and all that. And now when you ride up there, it's a very beautiful, what they've done with it. They've cleaned it all up, everybody's conformed to it, and I don't think there were many complaints once people realized what was going on. But Mr. Corradino has some ideas to help the city out, and if he would perhaps bring some of those along with him here, I would appreciate it. And that's all, Mayor.
Thank you. That's it, Vice Mayor? Yeah. One thing, Mr. Manager, I'd like to know who at the county who's responsible for traffic light sequencing, because I think our traffic lights are not sequencing correctly, because we have a lot of traffic sitting out in the middle of roadways waiting for the light to change. So I think they're patterned after a lot less traffic, and so I mean, to head down Campbell and be blocked all the way from US 1 to the interchange, I got to think it's more than just traffic. I think it's got a little bit to do with how they sequence the lights. 15th and US 1, 99 times out of 100, the cars are still sitting out in the middle of the road. So
we'll request from the county to do that. We know who's in charge of that department, so we'll get with them to do an updated study of the area to make sure that the timing is.
They're responsible for the traffic.
They are responsible for it.
I'm saying we need to find a way to squeal a little bit because they need to do something. Vice Mayor,
yeah, if I can just follow up on that, because 15th Street and US 1, I know I've spoken to Julio a couple times about this, but that's the same thing. You can't make a left-hand turn. It backs all the way up. It blocks US 1. But so when you add that to the list of the ones you look at, and also as a follow-up, we did ask for a red light study to be done, a left-hand turn signal to be done on 15th Street and Chrome, and the county denied us on that as well. That was, I think, a request that Councilwoman Waldman had made at one of the prior council meetings. So I want to give an update to the council as a whole to say that we did ask for that, and they refused. They said no, the traffic study did not warrant that. So I just wanted to report back to council so that if we decided that was our priority. Maybe we need to do it more as a uniform group and send a message, but I did try, and they did not have much reception to that.
I have to agree with Vice Mayor. We've been trying at that intersection for years, and enough is enough. You know, they can't come down here in 3 hours in the middle of the day and say there's not warranted. They need to come down here and drive it like we do every day. It is warranted. So whatever strong language, Mr. Manager, we can attach to some form to get them to do something for us instead of just say no. That would be appreciated. So we'll tag team. Again, we need to get their attention that we need some help. So I've got all the appointments for the board members on the agenda. If there's any discussion or any questions, if not, is there a motion to approve the board member appointments? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries. There's nothing else from any of the council members and staff. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Did you want to do the Housing Authority appointments? They're not on the...
They're on here. They're on the amended agenda.
Oh, they're on the amended?
Yeah, they're on
list?
the amended
Perfect.
agenda. Everybody was on there, so just trying to expedite the process. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moves there second? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.